Morning.
Morning, Lindsay. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you guys great. I'm gonna run and get some coffee and some other stuff. I'll be back in a minute.
All righty.
I guess it's just going to take you right in, not have to do the key or settings.
Coffee and some other stuff. I'll be back in a minute.
All righty.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track of all the changes. Guess it's just going to take you right in, not have to do the key or settings.
Coffee and some other stuff. I'll be back in a minute.
All righty.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track of all the changes.
Yeah. A note just popped up on my screen that we're streaming live to YouTube, so.
Key.
Yeah,
or
it's
settings.
Coffee and some
Okay.
other stuff. I'll be back in a minute.
All righty.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track of all the changes.
Yeah. A note just popped up on my screen that we're streaming live to YouTube.
Okay,
so-
yeah, I think Robert just got it
Yeah,
working.
it's-
Coffee and
Okay.
All righty.
Yeah, it's really hard to keep track of all the changes.
Yeah. A note just popped up on my screen that we're streaming live to YouTube.
Oh, do I have
Okay,
YouTube?
yeah,
I think
open?
Robert just got it working. Is that better? I don't know why I kept.
All right, so,
We're still streaming. It says
Yeah.
it says on mine live on YouTube, but I had that feedback going. Got
no, that's no problem. Yeah, we're live on YouTube now.
the lovely feedback. Let me see. So I don't see anybody else, so I give Mike a call.
Want me to give him a call?
I'm calling Mike Wild if you want to call Mike Thomas.
I'll call Mike Thomas.
Person Aaron? Yeah, no, she was on my list. No, but she wasn't on my list.
Hello.
I was in and keeping my head.
Yeah, I'm having trouble here, and let me get a headset.
Can you hear us, Mike?
Yes, now I can hear
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I was muted. I was talking to Vance.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not crazy. Nobody was talking.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you're working. So Vance is having some technical difficulties, but he's working on it.
Okay.
He got a new iPad. He said he has to install some software.
No problem. I'll be here.
Okay, Mike, it says you're connected. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, good.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, very good. Sorry, I just had the guy that was supposed to be here at 8 o'clock to do some work show up at 9 o'clock. Funny how that works.
At least they show up.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Boy, yeah,
So,
it's nowadays.
I can't get them to come. I had somebody who called me last week. It was one of those spam phone calls, but I answered it anyways. He was like, would you like a free roofing inspection? We'll come out and examine your gutters and your roof. And I was like, actually, I need someone to do my gutters. That would be great. Could you come out? He said, sure. Took the appointment down, never showed up. He called me.
yeah.
Yeah, I got the same call from the same roofer.
Now, what are you learning about taking spam phone calls?
That may be the only way to get someone to show up to my house, and it still doesn't work. So
Yeah. You need somebody to clean out your gutters. I can help you with that.
no, not clean, replace.
Oh, replace. Yeah. All right.
So Dale, I don't know if you heard me, but Vance is having a little bit of technical
I'm
difficulty.
here now.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Yeah.
These
Good.
Who
old
is that?
guys- Old people don't know how to do this.
No, it's the admin, and I'm not the admin. My wife had the password, and I couldn't find her, so it took a little time. I'm good now.
You're not allowed the password in your own house. Huh,
That's
Dan?
right. You know,
I don't blame her, to be honest. You know.
You
Hey,
know,
Sharon.
I've been, and I'm
Yeah.
just living.
You're
I'm
also
just
going to have to
living-
hit the record button. It won't allow me to record
Okay.
without permission. So you're going to have to hit the record button as
Okay.
well.
okay.
Dale, are you ready for me to start?
Sure.
Okay. All right, it's recording.
All
Thank you.
right. So thanks everybody for being here. This is something we do every year. Mike's been through a couple of these already, and or several of these already. But I know it's new for Vance and for Lindsay, and so this is probably the only real good shot that we get to actually get to know each other a little bit better and have an opportunity to talk a little bit candidly about things that we might that interest us, things we would like to see, be a part of what we might try to be doing in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, you know, kind of a visioning discussion. And if I'm hopefully not going to, you know, put anybody here on the spot, but, you know, if you want, let's get started with tell everybody a little bit of something about yourself that we would not otherwise know. And Mike, you be a great starter.
Well, I have a broken toe, it seems.
Oh, is that saying, it is broken?
Oh yeah, it's broken. It's still broken. I used to work for the Orlando Sentinel. I was a columnist there.
That doesn't count.
I worked on politics. I worked on some campaigns. I have a Karen Dental sign in my yard. And I've been on council. I ran for council 4 years ago and ran against Mike Dabby. And then this last time I was unopposed. And in 2 years, I will be done with politics. It's been nice to be able to get some things done, things like sidewalks and stuff. And so it's been a worthwhile experience, and it's good to have some fresh blood on the council. hope to get some fresh blood on all of our boards and get a new group of folks interested in Maitland. So that's my spiel.
Okay, I didn't want to hear any sordid details, but that's a good start. Vance, anything you want to share?
Born and raised in College Park. My mom even was born and raised in College Park, went to Princeton Elementary back in the day, back in the late 40s, early 50s. Same schools, Robert E. Lee, Edgewater. Met my wife at Edgewater High School. Other things about me. Water sports, love all water sports, anything that has to do with it. And I'm big into the Scottish heritage, Scottish games, and
Clan Guthrie.
Say again?
Clan Guthrie.
Clan Guthrie, you got it right, McDonald.
Do you eat haggis?
Haggis? I'm vegetarian, so luckily I can't eat it.
Cop out.
There is a recipe for vegetarian haggis. We could definitely we could hook you up there, Vance, if you really are interested.
No, I kind of like the fried Mars bars. That's more my style.
Mhm.
Now you're getting in my area there. Miss Lindsay.
Let's see. I was born in Toronto, so I'm Canadian. I'm actually dual citizen, so I have 2 passports, but I will never be president, which is totally fine with me. Let's see. I speak French fluently. I grew up on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon, and lived there until I was graduated from college. And then when I decided to go to law school, I needed to get a change of scenery because I was tired of the gray and the dreary and the rain and the drizzle. The Native American tribes who live up in the Puget Sound are said to have over 200 words for rain. So growing up in that climate was definitely something interesting. So that was why I moved to Florida, was because I needed some sunshine and palm trees. And then I met my husband on a study abroad while we were both in Germany, in Berlin together. And we knew each other 8 months when we got married. Now been together almost 12, 13 years, somewhere in there. Something actually interesting about me? No.
Just
I'm sure I'll
another.
come up with some- I don't have any famous celebrity sightings or.
Yeah.
No.
Wait a minute, I've got a quick story to tell. I'll forever think of Lindsay as just a dirt lawyer. A quote from a PRAB meeting that will forever be burned into my brain.
I'm a
That was
proud
good
dirt
one,
lawyer.
Leslie. Oh, that'll live in my
Yeah.
mind for a while. I'll remember that for a good stint.
Yeah,
Oh, look,
but,
here, this one's for your husband right there.
Oh,
Sunderland,
I
pass that on to him.
I got him a Newcastle United koozie for his for
boo.
Father's Day. Did you know I had to custom order that? Like I literally had to have someone actually produce it for me, and it cost me $20 because you cannot purchase such a thing. They don't exist.
Well, that's because nobody wants one. It's called
Well,
supply and demand.
The Brits don't need koozies. They like their beer warm. I mean, it literally was something I could not buy him.
Well, that's good stuff.
Healthy rivalry.
I mean, I've known all of you a long time, so I don't know that there's a lot I have to add, but that's sort of how the Maitland's house flags happened. They had to be invented.
Mhm.
And thought that was a great opportunity to kind of show some pride of ownership in the city. Let's see, I've got a 90, almost, well, it'll be 95 in 3 weeks. My father in Ocala, 93-year-old aunt down in Orlando. And so I'm the only one on either side still around. Yeah, I grew up in Ocala. I never knew anything better than, but here's a little, I think Mike knows this. My dad was a Hall of Fame state champion twice, state, high school basketball coach. And so I grew up in the gym basically. But as a part of that, he was close to the program at Florida. And since September of 1960, including going to school for 2 years at Furman in Greenville, South Carolina, I've only missed 6 home football games. So I need to find a good 12-step program for that.
Florida State games.
I did, but then I had to come home and take a shower. As a matter of fact, quickie story, when I was 12, I went with my dad and 2 buddies of his to Tallahassee for my very first game in Tallahassee. And was wearing, this would have been 1965 or so. And had my little, light blue long sleeve dress shirt and my little orange and blue striped tie. And Florida had beaten Florida State that day. And so I came romping out of the stadium, running ahead, of course, to where the car was.
I'll talk to you, Matt.
And I presume it was a Florida State fan, but it could have been anybody. Never saw it, punched my lights out. And at 12, I was about this big. And so I got bloody nose, knocked cold. And my dad had to track me down at the Tallahassee Police Department first aid station there, where they had people trying to revive me. So I don't have great recollections from early on about Doak Campbell. Although I have great recollections of the nursing school up there, I got to say that. Anyway, so enough said about that. So yeah, I've been serving continually on various advisory boards with the city since '93, when our former legendary community development director coerced me into doing this, Dave Tomek. So I'd served on Altamont's planning commission back in the very early 80s through about 84, when they developed the very first comprehensive development plans that the state had mandated. So much of what you see in Altamont today was planned then. So it's kind of fun to be able to look back and see discussions about what it might be one day and kind of come to fruition, and remember that, that's just a big retention pond up there. So I'm forgetting the name now. What is it?
Crane's Roost? I don't know.
Crane's Roost. Thank you. Yes. Crane's Roost, just a retention pond. So
Don't tell them that.
well, no, they love it. They do a great job with it. Now, I'd love to have Lake Lily be our version of that, and be able to be the multi-purpose, location that it's become. All right, that's great. I appreciate that. Let's kind of get started with something that I think is important for us, and Mark and Sharon will need to be able to hear, and because this is part of what they get to derive from. Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
No, I got Wilders popped on.
Oh, okay.
No, I've been here. I just haven't had my video on because I only have a t-shirt on. So
You didn't do your hair today?
I didn't.
Yeah, but I brought my teeth just for you guys. Let's get into some discussions a little bit. Mike, throw a little something at us that we don't already know.
About what?
You.
Oh, you want me to go through my life?
Well, no, I don't want the whole thing. I want 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear. We've got people from all over the country from a birth standpoint. I'm from the Northeast. I was born in New York City. Lived in the Northeast, New York and New Jersey, until I went to college, went to Vanderbilt, moved back. and worked in New York City for a year, and then went to Miami for law school. Met Stacy in London, but we were both in law school. We were at the Miami. We were both in Miami, but we met while we were in London doing a study abroad program.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So
And Stacy was a Lake Mary girl?
Stacy is from Miami. She was
Miami.
she grew up in South Miami, and now her parents live up here in Heathrow.
Yeah.
But have 3 kids and love to coach sports. Done a lot of just from Melissa to London, and last year was my first year coaching soccer for Christopher. So love to do that and love to spend time with them and love music. I'm a big fan of all kinds of music and love to play guitar when I have an opportunity. Yeah. So those are fun facts about Mike Wild.
He's got some great old albums you'd love to see.
Yeah, I've got guitars on the walls, and I've got some vinyl records that we use as our artwork in my dining room. So, and they're diverse enough. So they go from today to way back. But anyway, so yeah.
Michael,
music.
got a question for you. What is
Yeah.
what does the C stand for in Michael C. Wild?
Christopher.
Now we know.
Now that just makes sense, right?
All comes together.
Yeah. There was a plan.
There
I
was.
was in Indian Princesses with Mike, and so I got to listen to him play guitar with a friend of ours named Kyle. So around the campfire.
Yeah, that was always doing. We used to play this song that the girls would run around the fire to, and it was a lot of fun. That's one of my.
Sort of like Lord of the Flies, or the girls
Yeah.
went back to their. You give them some unstructured playtime, and they just revert to their
Instincts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's jump into something a little more, although this is substantive. I could do this for a while. Let's think about some goals / visions of what we might want to try to accomplish in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, if you left it up to me, 40 years. Where we'd like to be, things we'd like to get accomplished or see accomplished, that because nobody can touch them better than we can. Anybody want to jump up and get started? Vance, go ahead.
All right. Well, I guess in 1 year, I mean, that's going to be kind of tricky right now with everything we're facing. So, whatever little things we can do to improve the city, install trees. I'd like to see that happen. And that is one that's even on my 5 year is, as everybody walks around the city, you can tell our city was built from 1958 to 1985. So, and in that time, that's when, the developers were using a lot of water oaks because they grow fast. But the sad thing is they also die fast. So they're all reaching their age. And,
The laurels are getting old.
Right. And it would be nice just to go ahead and start, what we are doing a replacement plan, but continuing that. Also to maybe look at improving some of the streets, like Horatio, come up with a game plan to improve the beautification of Horatio. I think in the long run, the whole answer is keep our property values up, keep it a beautiful town, incorporate maybe some more arts and history into it. And I think that brings value, along with a quality library, and also with giving our citizens places to go and things to do. So parks, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good stuff there. Horatio is a challenge. The county would love to give us Horatio yesterday. Yeah, I'm sure we could all agree that to turn Horatio into some sort of complete street, but that's got a price tag attached to it, that we could easily spend a couple of $1 million on that. And I'm not sure that we've got that in the capital improvements program, but we could, to consider that. How about anybody else want to jump up? Vance, let me go a step further. When I stretch it out to 5 years, do you see any longer view of 10 years? That because this is kind of like the LDC we're working on now.
Right.
These are visionary documents.
Right. And I think that then we're talking about, really the downtown area on that vision. You want to keep your homes where the homes are and not really tread into those. So we're talking the 1792 area. And
Yeah.
Listen, we're not going to build really, we don't have any room to build something new. So we're going to have to, just tear down and rebuild everything or improve everything. So I think that's what we need to see. And of course, I mean, the frustration with it also is the undergrounding. We could sit here and have this conversation for hours just on undergrounding utilities, getting businesses to come in. And in talking to that, I mean, we're talking about our LDC, but, we also have to talk about what's important right now. And I hope we talk about this today is our office areas. Right now, everybody's staying at home. I don't know if, we'll dive into that later.
Yeah,
But-
we're going to dive into a variety of stuff,
Yeah.
but you're on the right track.
Right.
One thing that our pandemic exposures has brought to the world, and Sharon and Mark benefit from this, even in a staff meeting standpoint, that, meeting virtually can be more efficient. Our staff folks now have really embraced, meeting rather than Kim Tracy having to jump up and drive from the west side, over and back. And pretty soon they've blown off an hour and instead of being able to jump online and have staff meetings. They already know what they look like. So not a lot of surprises there. And Mike, I bet they can even wear a t-shirt and it's okay. So, so again, there are efficiencies, and that's going to come into play as the market, Vance, and you're right, as the market reflects that need with more people working at home or working, remotely. So as we even think about, which I think we would all agree that we've got the most exquisitely located area west of the interstate that is blighted from an age standpoint today. There is no better, because again, you've all heard me say, with the only intersection of I-4 and Maitland Boulevard and the 429 and the whole metro area, we are main and main of North Orange County, South Seminole County. So there are lots of long-term, what can we do to incentivize, to motivate redevelopment of some of the best dirt that exists in Metro Orlando. So especially where we have code in place now that folks could go to, was it a 3.0 FAR out on the west side? I mean, these could be 15 plus story buildings, easy. Walk in the door and do it. But then we got to find some place for them to put stormwater. And so much of that's being wasted now with each of those parcels having to have on-site stormwater retention. So lots of views, but you're right.
Well, another area that we really need to focus on also that I think is going to be one of our major important areas, because, you know, back to what you were saying about the 15 stories, you know, if that's where we want to put our, you know, start putting people who want to move into Maitland into condos, apartments, whatever they be, then we also need to look in the future about developing that with retail and restaurants, and, you know, making that kind of also a little happening place where people can go and have things to see.
I don't know if I told you all this story, but I think I told Sharon. I met a couple that had newly moved into Trey Lago shortly after it opened, and an Australian couple, young couple, I'd say mid-30s max, no kids, but they were animators with Disney, and they had been living out of Celebration in an apartment out there for a couple of years and wanted to get out of that, and felt so strongly about Trey Lago because they can just jump on Maitland Boulevard 429 and be at the back door of Disney in 20 minutes, which they thought was fabulous. That was more convenient to them than living in Celebration, they seemed to believe. Oh yeah, and they didn't mind paying $3,800 a month in rent either. So they were one of the big units, Vance back in the back, you know, so it just never occurred to me that somebody theoretically works at Disney would have thought Maitland was more convenient. It just blew me away, because I would have thought that was lost a bet and had to live in Maitland and work at Disney. So it's a different world, and trying to see ourselves as others might see us. Mike, anything jump out at you? Either
No, I
Mike
think-
or Mike, either one.
I was going to say, I mean, I think that the redevelopment of the West Side is always something that we've talked about, but I think who knows what's going to happen there. I mean, I do think suburban office is probably, I don't know, I think it looks better in many ways than downtown Orlando. So there could be,
unless you throw tens of millions of dollars like Mayor Dyer did to make EA Sports want to go down there.
yeah, I'm talking about in a new world of,
Yeah.
And look, there, I mean, it's hard to predict a future based on, you know, this certain current situation, which hopefully will pass sooner than later. But I think people will make decisions over the next year or so that will be dependent on kind of current needs and space needs. And I think everything's going to look different, but I do think that in a remote working world, which this is going to trend towards possibly, that I think that area is attractive because there's possibilities to rebuild properties, put in big parking decks. And but I don't know, you know, we've talked about this before. I don't know what we can really do as a city other than work with potential developers and maybe put in some master stormwater systems or something like that we really could do that would spur that along and help that. I mean, I think we're kind of at the market's timing on that one. I do think that continuation of Independence Lane, continuation of the sidewalks projects throughout the city, I mean, we talked, you know, the undergrounding is a very tough one, which I'm sure we'll get to. Increasing the park projects that we've been doing and keeping that momentum up. I think we've got I mean, the lakes and the parks in this city are great, and keeping those clean and fresh is, I think, a great asset to the city as a whole. So, I mean, those are obviously the bigger concept stuff, but again, I mean, budgets and all that are going to obviously have an impact as to what we can do over the next foreseeable future.
Well, I can't help but agree that those commitments to increasing the pride of ownership that folks that live here have I can't help but think that Independence Square is going to be ultimately a more popular place than anyone would have ever imagined. Because all I've heard is, wow, y'all are doing it, and or having to even tell people that, yeah, the park project's underway. And so the city's been looking for a place to gather for decades. And this will provide a place. I'm sorry, I can do this all day. Lindsay, anything jump out at you?
I have a list.
Oh, you got it. Oh my God, we got a list maker. Go ahead.
Short-term priorities, I would really like to see us being very serious about fast tracking a lot of the things that were on the bike ped walk master plan of going through the neighborhoods. And, there are so many little portions of the city where we're missing sidewalks. And those are, to me, easy, quick one-off projects that we could fix.
Preaching to the choir here.
And, just even trying to be walkable in downtown. I mean, you guys know I live very close to downtown, right off of Horatio by Minnehaha, and we walk everywhere, and we really diligently try to walk everywhere. And it's frustrating to try and actually maneuver around the downtown, because sometimes we take the stroller with us because she's 3 and she doesn't necessarily want to walk, and it's not entirely accessible. And that's very frustrating. It's not only are we giving the message to people who have mobility issues that we don't care about you because we haven't fixed this, but
Yeah.
it actually creates significant risk. And so I really think that's a very, very important thing, that a lot of those are quick fix problems, like repaving a certain corner or, just putting in a new piece of sidewalk. And I think we should really focus on some of those, because it's important for the residents to be able to walk.
Agreed. Number 2.
I would like to see us have an actual undergrounding plan delivered to council so that we can get something in writing and voted on, and really be seriously looking at not just saying we're going to do it, but actually having something in place. So when development does come back, we can have a pot of money growing to actually get to a solution. I know Fort Maitland is is going ahead, but I don't know that we've ever firmly decided whether that's going to be a boat parking lot or whether it's going to be a park. And I think that that's a really important conversation that we have to actually have at the city level, is, do we want that to be a boat parking lot, or do we want it to be something for the residents to be able to go and access the park? And
Along with a boat.
With a boat ramp, right? So which one is it?
Yeah.
I think we need to come up with some sort of a small business initiative, especially coming out the other side of COVID, to try and encourage new small businesses to come into the community. We need to find a way to either help them, to identify space and get them in with incentives or some sort of assistance on fast tracking things. I don't know, but we need to desperately encourage our local residents to create small businesses and to work and live in the community, and to help us to grow it. Because if we want Independence Lane and we want that park to be a success, we're going to have businesses around it that are growing with it. The 5-year plan, 10-year plan, I would like to see us harnessing the importance of the Art and History Center, and to try and grow an artists colony or an artist community around that. So encouraging art galleries to come in, encouraging some sort of an artist co-op, so that we have a thriving, growing arts community. That's something that can distinguish us from Winter Park. It's something that can distinguish us from our neighboring cities. We've got the historical portion of it. I think we should encourage that, and try and encourage other like businesses and like organizations to come into that area, and we really create a sense of purpose and place for all of those things. And I also want us to talk about retaking our utilities. Our residents in Maitland do not have a lot of options for cable internet, and we are at the behest of contracts that we've made. Duke Energy is a problem. I would like to see us at least having a conversation about how we extricate ourselves from these contracts that we're trapped in, and what is can we get community Wi-Fi up and running for our residents? Could we actually put together some sort of a internet hub? And, is that even a doable thing? But I think other
Right.
cities can do it. I think we should. And if we really genuinely want to be a business center for the West Side, then we need to have, fiber optic internet going through there. And if it's city owned, even better. So that's kind of my short list.
That was the short list?
That was the short list. I could talk about diversity initiatives and the fact that
Yeah.
we need to do better at encouraging, more diversity within our city and within our council and within our advisory boards and within a whole bunch of things, but that's my
Yeah.
short.
And I thought we were happy to have a Canadian. But I hear what you're saying. Mr. Thomas, anything jump out at you?
Of course, I share the same concern about the aging Maitland Business Center, given that's the golden goose, but outside of the market, deciding that's valuable enough dirt to reinvest in, I guess that's kind of on hold. Some general things. What Lindsay said about small businesses, I think we need to create an environment that encourages developers like the Maitland Market to come here. We seem to have dragged them through the process, and I'm not sure that was an inviting way to encourage other such projects to come here. I think we need to create a pedestrian corridor from Lake Lily to Maitland Avenue along that downtown stretch, but we've talked about that for quite some time. The library, a new library at maybe Quinn Strong Park, which would be more of a digital library and sort of a 21st century library. I think that's something to look at. And I was hoping to get some sort of initiative on the next ballot just to see if residents would vote for a small millage increase to fund that, and maybe combine that with CRA funds to lower the cost. But I don't know in this economic environment if that's the time to do it. Our neighborhoods, and again, getting back to what Lindsay said, we need to stay competitive with other neighborhoods that have sidewalks and all these features that weren't put in back in the 1960s. And if you look at the real estate projections, large lot homes, which is basically what Domerick and Lake Sibylla and all that is, they're projecting an oversupply of them as people move into apartments and condos, and there's less two-parent families with kids. And so it's going to be very important that we remain competitive with all these new developments going up, and that will entail sidewalks and other features that these new communities have. A couple other things. I think Lindsay brought up something important on Fort Maitland, and that's, do we want to make it a park or a boat parking lot, or a boat parking lot? Because it's mainly a boat parking lot for out of town residents now. And if you see what Winter Park did at Dinky Dock, they basically eliminated boat trailer parking because they did not want Dinky Dock to be a boat parking lot. And I don't know how we go about doing that at Fort Maitland. I've always wanted to approach the idea of making that for residents only, that boat launch. That's what Windermere has, a city boat launch for residents. But I've been told that we got some grant from the state 50 years ago that requires forever and ever we keep that open to the entire public. I'd like to revisit that agreement and see if there's any potential we can have for somehow reserving. Well, first of all, I'd like to cut down the number of spaces and then reserve the spaces that are there for priority for Maitland residents. I don't know how to do that. But I'd like it to be looked at because that's just such a prime location for
Oh, yeah.
community park, and to just, have it be there for people from Castleberry to come and launch their boats. And no offense to Castleberry, but
No, from Polk County to Volusia County.
yeah, and they go out and some of them don't behave well, and Dog Island, which is a beautiful resource, it's just turned into a party island, and there's broken glass, and it's just a wasted resource. So I would really like to address what exactly we want Fort Maitland to be. Another area I think that is vastly underutilized is that Lake Sibilia beachfront, where we talked about putting a kayak launch. But I went out there, and it's just a beautiful spot, and that, again, down the future, maybe we could revisit that. What else do I have here? Undergrounding is interesting, and I think we're going to have to address that with Domric coming up. But the cost of undergrounding, and then as you well know, Dale, if we pay to underground lines, and then we have to pay for those improvements when we take the system back from Duke, and was it 15 years, 16 years?
Yeah, 15.
So you kind of wonder, the cost benefit of basically paying twice to underground lines, at least in residential areas. And should we revisit that and think about waiting until we take over the system? And that way we're paying once, and we're paying, with money that used to go to Duke shareholders. If there was any way to get out of that Duke contract, but as I understand it, we are imprisoned by that.
I've gotten used to calling us indentured servants.
Yeah. So that's a few things, but for the next couple of years, I don't see us doing much until this budget situation resolves itself. We have 22% unemployment in Orange County, and there are people I know in Domric who are just scared out of their wits. And so much of our economy depends on real estate and tourism, and both those are in construction, and all those are under extreme pressure right now. So I'm not anxious to increase taxes or do anything to worsen their situation. I would like to position us to be in a good place when we eventually come out of this. And I think part of that is creating an environment for small businesses, getting our land development code, getting our zoning, just get everything in place. We'll have the Independence Park, ready to go. So to have the things in place that whenever we recover from this, we're ready to go. So with that, I'll pass the baton, the talking stick to, to the next person.
All right. Again, yeah, I'm not sure that, I mean, you guys have all touched on topics that I would have wanted to address as well. We are very blessed to have all the assets and the market perceived assets of great parks, schools, lakes, demographic to die for, location that is unduplicatable. But I agree with something that Vance had commented on earlier as well, that houses, so many of our houses will come and go, but the location remains. The dirt remains, in Lindsay's terms, so this is, that's the value. Nobody's looking at Diamond because the houses themselves are extraordinary. Which is terrific that we've been able to see the tear downs, the rebuilds, the renovations that have gone on there. But I think, Mike, I think you're absolutely right that those come with expectations of upgrades of street lighting and undergrounding and sidewalks that make this, us be extraordinary. And so I can't agree more. And it's going to require commitment on behalf of council. I mean, Sharon and I were certainly around, and Mike, I think you were certainly peripherally when 2005, when that council chose not to make a commitment to ourselves and extended the franchise agreement within Progress Energy. It, as nice as I can put it, that was certainly a short-sighted view, given that we already knew that Winter Park had done what they had done. Not that Winter Park is the epitome of choices to make, but it's a complex discussion, but only to the degree that, as Thomas commented on, paying for things twice. And the opportunity to have bought all that infrastructure back in those days for 30 million. And Sharon scares me every day when she reminds me that in 2035, that might be 100 million. And yeah, go ahead.
For the benefit of the new kid, can you explain why would we be paying twice? What does the contract say that would require that?
Well, it's a great question. Remember, Duke, it was Progress Energy then, owns the infrastructure. They own their lines. They own the easements where the lines go. And if we were to, we had been presented with, an alternative, our Electrical Power Advisory Board that had voted unanimously to buy that infrastructure from Progress Energy. And that vote failed 4-1 at a council level, that they own that. And so as we improve that which they own, whether it's undergrounding or whether it's replacing poles or lines or whatever that we pay for. Now there, and Sharon, jump in when there is some credit that may be given for what we may have paid for, that we don't have to necessarily on a dollar for dollar basis have to buy that portion of it back. Is that right, Sharon?
Well, Mayor, you had the benefit of sitting through Randy Knight's presentation at the Sustainability Board meeting. So the Sustainability Committee had asked him to come and tell us Winter Park's story. How did it go? How did they buy it? Where are they now? What would they do differently if they were in our shoes? And one of the things that their city manager said is our agreement, just like theirs at the time, comes to arbitration. So Duke Energy is going to argue for every dime. And in Winter Park's case, they got paid for the undergrounding that Winter Park had done, stranded costs for their customers. And you go to arbitration, and we would certainly argue, hey, we paid to install this undergrounding, but ultimately it's arbitration. And they chose to just take the number and eat all those costs and move on because it could be worse, could have been worse. So he's saying you could certainly make the case, and I won't be here,
Sure.
but we would certainly make the case, you know, that we paid for those, but it's just like Maitland City Center paid to underground all that stuff there, and the Maitland Station paid. We didn't pay for it. So they're going to argue that that's their improvements in their system and we should pay for it, as well as stranded costs. And he did give us some strategies with the stranded
Yeah.
costs. Start telling them about 10 years before, hey, we're going to buy this. So, you know, so they don't make investments in the system, which of course we don't
They
necessarily. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't. But what happened last time happened in Castleberry, sort of happened here. As soon as they know you're going to buy the system, they
They
throw
quit.
every dollar. Yeah, they put people up for council seats. They, you know, send people out into the community to scare people on the west side. I know it worked in Castleberry. Clearly it worked here.
Yeah,
But they have a lot of money and they don't want to give up that system.
You know, and Thomas, you would appreciate the pressure brought to bear on that council at that time. Because this was a lot of money.
I was in the thick of that because I was writing about it for the
Right.
newspaper, but Progress Energy, they just went at Winter Park with unholy vengeance. And
Yeah.
Winter Park stood up to it. But I've never seen such pressure and such an intense campaign.
Yeah.
We probably would have experienced something similar if we had really proceeded to do it. But I think what helps us when our turn comes in 15 years is we can point to the Winter Park experience. And that's pretty undeniable when you have your neighbor who has benefited so greatly from buying out the system. So, you know, that puts us in a better position. So when the time comes, and I'll be living over there at the JCC Old Folks Home and stuff. So
If you can get in.
yeah. So you know, but that's something we gotta, you know, and we gotta start looking at. And it's 15 years away, but whatever we can do, you know, to prepare ourselves for that day now and ramp up those preparations, you know, as the time approaches. I don't know what that would be, but if there is something, I would definitely be for it.
Well, and I'd be happy to share Randy's presentation that he shared with us if you guys are
Which
interested.
is fabulous, actually.
And
Extremely
looking through it.
helpful.
Yeah.
And
Because
Mike
they're
would-
now, they actually initially started buying from Duke Energy. I mean, that's Progress Energy at the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now they've made a lot of changes. So it's you will have a good path to follow. And I know they'd help us out to get out of this, you know what I mean? They
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
to see us out. Yeah.
Well, and Mike Thomas may well remember this. We had an alternate option to buy the infrastructure back for around 31 million, if I remember roughly. And then buy the infrastructure back and OUC.
You're
to run-
right. Yeah.
And then OUC would be undergrounding as a part of that agreement for 30 years to be undergrounding 1.5 miles every year. And then at the end of each fiscal year, writing us $1 million check.
That was such a no-brainer, Dale.
I know, Michael. And that's roughly what our debt service would have been on the bonds that we would had to have issued to come up with the 30 million to buy it.
Ugh.
And so at the end of that 30-year period coming up in 2035, then we have free and clear infrastructure and we could put ourselves in the market. So we might become maybe Nebraska Utilities wants to run it.
Well,
We did-
what may have been, so.
Yeah. So
See
understand
exactly
that
what can happen. Yeah.
that given that, which an electrical power advisory board appointed by a council unanimously recommended, there was enough pressure brought to council to not do that. So it was, yeah, you're right, Mike. We don't get a mulligan on that. So,
I think one of the things you want to watch is any now all these contracts, Castleberry, Maitland, they're all going to be expiring again around the same time. If you remember, we're all kind of happening at the same time. Is they would go up to the they would be willing to go up to the legislature and say, oh, you can't transfer money back to your general fund from you to, I mean, just look for them to be
yeah,
pressuring legislation that'll make it unattractive for cities to want to take it over. So I just think we have to be diligent, even if it's not impacting us now. If it impacts Winter Parks Electric or Mount Dores Electric, it will ultimately impact us if we're the owner. So we just have to watch.
well, and a little known fact, our service agreement with then Progress Energy had actually expired a few years before, and we extended it for, was it 5 years, Sharon?
Yeah.
To give
Yeah.
ourselves the opportunity to see what other local municipalities had done. So we saw what other municipalities had done, and then we did this anyway. Of course, that was the year following, 3 or 4 hurricanes. And so there was a great deal of fear generated by the vested interest of Progress Energy that what would happen if you guys didn't have our cover? What would happen? Well, we managed just fine, didn't we, Sharon?
Yeah,
So,
it was, if you remember, they put people up from the west side to come to council meetings and say they'd relocate their businesses because we weren't sophisticated enough to supply electric to them.
you can't make this up, Lindsay.
Yeah. I mean, they had people coming to fiscal advisory board meetings,
Right.
it was interesting.
Speaking at public periods at virtually every advisory board meeting where there were citizens involved. It was pretty intense. Of course, I love that. So, it's, again, it gets complicated, but Sharon's right. The key to all of this was the arbitration, where the presumption is we've improved their stuff. It'd be like me coming and putting a new roof on your house, Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll pay for it. Sure. Because I love Lindsay. So, but it's, there's just no upside.
But there's an argument to be made for, the next 15 years that we're all going to be, your analogy, living in this house, looking at the
Yeah.
shabby walls and going, I'm not going to paint them because I'm renting.
That's not a bad analogy.
So, are we going to spend the next 15 years staring at the walls and wishing that we'd done something? And just because down the way we know that the cost is going to come back? Or do we find a way to adjust for the cost in our strategic planning going forward while also making the necessary improvements now? Because for the next 15 years, we can't just be sitting waiting, because it's,
And that, yeah, you're right.
day
You're right.
one on year 16, we're not going to suddenly magically have everything undergrounded.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And that's the $100 million question is an arbitration finding. And I don't know. But it's awfully hard to look, as Mike had pointed out earlier, to look citizens in the eye today that we're going to increase your millage rate to begin to put stuff in the bank for 2035. It's hard. I don't have a great answer. And I don't like not having great answers. So, but you're right. But along with that, street lighting and all the things that make, we've still got different topic, but we've still got, can't get folks to provide easements for sidewalks around Lake Sibelia. There is no excuse. So where people are having to walk in the street, kids, and there's just no excuse.
So are there not already established easements around for that the city
No.
has? No.
No, we do not have them. Sharon, do you want?
Yeah, the missing pieces on South Lake Sibelia and North Lake
Right.
Sibelia are because we don't have right of way.
Okay.
And those owners have refused to give us right of way. Now we're going to make another effort at it. We do have someone on board that has been securing easements for us, but then they'll get paid for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the people who gave it to us because it was the right thing, didn't
Yeah.
get paid for it. But ultimately, you know, if you want a sidewalk, we're gonna have to, and I don't even know, I think there's some that just absolutely will not give us an easement. They've said it. So we're
And
just
you
trying
know
to,
some of these people, Lindsay.
yeah, yes.
Well, but we have eminent domain rights.
Yes, we do.
So why aren't
Yes.
we, I mean, yeah, it makes us seem like, you know, we're the bad guy, but ultimately, if we have residents walking in the streets to walk around the lake, I think that we have to, and we have a totally justified reason for saying we're doing it.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you there. And it's a matter of establishing the broader community benefit and having the character as community leaders to go act on behalf of the community benefiting from it.
Right.
So there are folks that have dug their heels in. There are 5 or 6 folks on the south side of Lake Sibilia that would rather you bring the virus back than give that up. And it won't be about the money. Now they will make it about the money, but it will be not about the money. So, but yeah, it's that concept, and you're on the right track, Lindsay. It's about commitment on behalf of a council to say, we're going to go do this. Now, what's it going to take? And then I've got to raise Mike Thomas's taxes because we're going to go, some other citizen is going to force us to spend taxpayer dollars to get a 5-foot easement across that will only benefit in value their property.
Mm-hmm.
As you go spend millions of dollars to buy a lakefront house, you can expect that there's going to be a sidewalk in front. That I can do this all day. So it's a challenge. And those are things where you have, whether it's sidewalks in Domrick, I mean, what kind of a challenge have we seen, getting a sidewalk on Choctaw? You would think people were giving up body parts. Okay. Couldn't be more ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And we own the right of way there.
Right.
So these are things that obviously, guys, we're going to want to advocate for things that may upset somebody.
Well, one of our problems, or our predecessors' problems, is nobody wanted to upset anybody. And 1 or 2 people who got upset could kill a project that would benefit the whole neighborhood.
Yep.
We had
including council
situation
members.
over here on Tuscarora Trail that went without a sidewalk forever because like 3 people, Bill Kahn, who some of you know, and because of that, I mean, parents were pushing baby strollers on a busy
In the street.
in the street, and I was a citizen there, and I went to council and I said, we gotta do something about this. And the members of council at that time and the city manager at that time just said, oh yeah, and then they just brushed it aside. That's actually one of the reasons I ran for council. And it wasn't until Karen Simasek, who's a force of nature, really started beating the drum. And now that sidewalk is just used. People love it. I just see, moms and dads and kids riding their bikes. And so, if you just get over, trying to appease a handful of people and focus on the community good, we can get a lot of things done. But it's just, when 5 people show up and start screaming at a city council meeting, the go-to strategy in the past was retreat. And so we we need to stop retreating. So
Mike's right.
Yeah, I agree.
And while you've got a mayor for the next, 8 or 9, 10 months that sleeps just fine at night if people are upset, use me while you have me in regards to these things.
Just wind you up and send you out.
Don't even hesitate.
Hey, Dale, let's not forget about Wild. I don't think we've heard from him yet.
Michael.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Anything you want to share in our vitriolic moments here?
No, I mean, I put it on mute because my dogs bark
Okay.
quite a bit. So I was trying to avoid that interruption, but
I think
no,
you know
I mean,
things.
yeah, I mean, on the sidewalk project, I mean, obviously, I think the sidewalks are important. There are some things I think from logical extensions of the ones we've already got in place. I mean, I think that Domrick Drive one extending down to the Oaks would be
Yes.
great.
Makes sense.
Now, I did look at it, and it's going to get difficult as you get down to the end there. Because that's the slope of that, the slope on that side of the street is tough all the way down. And then you've got that lot that's treed, which actually shouldn't be too bad to clean up, but there'll be some things to clean up. And then that lot on the corner has some trees and some slope there that we would have to deal with. But I think we're going to have to, I mean, obviously seeing what happens with the budget, we're going to have to be more strategic on all these projects that we do and prioritizing ones that are really safety issues and kind of going down the list. But I don't think we should lose the momentum. I mean, I think I hear from tons of people how appreciative they are that these things are getting done. So I'd hate to, I mean, I know we can't do anything, it is what it is from a budget standpoint, but it would be great to keep that up.
And following up on that, Michael, what you're pointing out is a commitment to get things done. It may not happen right away, but establishing a commitment that this is important and this will be done. That we haven't always seen from a council. So
no,
yeah.
and like I said, everyone is, I mean, I think everybody understands. Well, not everybody. I think there's an understanding that things are complicated, although there is still frustration from, and we've touched on a bunch of these already, but that people don't understand why undergrounding didn't happen 10 years ago. Sidewalks should go in 30 days. It's.
Yeah.
So we have some of that. And so I think that budget issues aside, it would be great to keep the momentum moving on some of these projects and keep going, because there are some safety issues around.
Oh yeah.
That would be great to fix. I mean, let alone we haven't even delved into. I mean, there's so many other things from a safety issue that people have talked about over the years, from just making the streets safer for pedestrians and bikers and all that, which I think we would all like to do. And it was actually great there for a while when things started slightly reopening, that people were actually out there riding bikes and walking around. There seemed to be a lot of that. And we really do have a great city for that. And we have great parks. So
you're right.
Connectivity to those is great.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It actually just top of my mind. Sharon, between Versailles and the top of Minnehaha, there's that walkway that connects the two. There's a tree that's fallen over into the walkway.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I just noticed it this morning on my run.
Okay.
I apologize, Mike, for interrupting you.
No, you're good.
But Mike, you're right. The market and our citizenry will recognize the commitment that Maitland is investing in itself in a right way. And that message goes across the board. And these are new things for us, and Thomas has seen it over the years. And the fact that we care enough about ourselves to actually invest our money in ourselves hasn't always been seen. Good stuff, guys. Anybody have any other thoughts in that regard? 1 year, 5 years, longer? That this is great stuff. But it requires some resolve. That we're going to do this, and that's going to apply to a variety of different topics. Whether it's undergrounding, whether it's infrastructure, I mean, heck, and it's so easy to keep using Domrick because it's such an old, Domrick Estate, such an old subdivision done in 55. How long do you think those sewer and water lines are supposed to last? I know the ones in front of my house that Mr. Clayton did in Hollyanna in 1955, they're 2-inch galvanized water lines. And the sewer lines are terracotta. Can't make this up. And so sooner or later, we're going to have to invest back in what the Mr. Claytons of the world paid for back in the day. Was never meant to last 60, 65 years. And so we have a lot, given the fabulous location and all the assets that we have, from Vance's tree canopy to, to parks, lakes, schools, all the above, and the ability for our 6.49 square mile city to be able to be pedestrian and bicyclically traversed. We're fabulous, so investing back in ourselves. And if it takes a millage rate increase to do that, so be it. Somebody else paid for what we have now and what we've been benefiting from for 50, 60 years. So gotta, okay, I love you, Lindsay, but I'm not paying for the roof on your house. But sometimes you just have to, deferred maintenance is a real thing. Sooner or later, you got to paint your house. Sooner or later, you got to put a roof on it. All right. You got to put tires on the car. They ain't pretty, right, Mike? But you got to do it.
Is that an old school commercial I just heard right there, Dale?
Yeah, it was. Tires ain't pretty, but you got to do it. So nothing sexy, nothing glorious, nothing sewer and water lines. And so you're going to dig a hole and make a mess. But then that's an opportunity, as Lindsay mentioned earlier, to maybe run fiber optic or finding some way to therefore further increase the value of the land itself and the location. So, and again, getting back to I'm still going to want to impress, Leona's grandkids and Christopher's grandkids, with what we do now. And it's not ever going to be any easier than it is right now. Now, I know we got budget constraints. I get that. We're not taking a millage rate to 10, but somebody's got to think this way. An undergrounding master plan. Okay. We don't have that. And that was part of what was discussed even with the Maitland Market, application. So, and then again, it's difficult to go do an undergrounding master plan when we don't have any control of the undergrounding from that standpoint. And Duke has already told us, for example, that they're not going to do any undergrounding along Horatio. Right, Sharon?
Mm-hmm.
They can just check out. Because remember, undergrounding is only as good as the trunk lines that serve all of that. Well, Sharon's undergrounded at her house, and she went out the other night, and it certainly wasn't because her neighborhood went out. It was because the trunk lines went out on 436, for example, or wherever they are. So it's a big discussion, and it's big dollars, but it requires a commitment of 5 council people and then 5 behind us. Okay. So it's good stuff. Thank you, guys. What else we got? Like that jumps kind of back in where I was wanting. I had made some notes about undergrounding and water and sewer lines. Heck, you guys are wearing out some of the topics that I had wanted to make notes about or wanted to have discussed.
Can you just run through them just so I can take them down? Because I'm trying to do my virtual dots here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Lindsay and Vance haven't had to do dots before yet.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to run through
Just
with,
yours, I've got theirs written down, but what are your
okay.
priorities?
Oh, no. I'm an infrastructure guy. And you know what? In that water lines, sewer lines, I don't care how wonderfully technologically advanced we become. Potable water has to come in, wastewater's got to go out. And that is something that we'll never owe Duke for. That is directly investing in the city of Maitland and in our people. Sewer lines, water lines. Let's see what else. Even master planning that. Okay, so no, we've covered a lot of stuff that you all did a great job of pointing out things that again have long-term redeeming value for Christopher Wiles' kids. And okay, Leona's kids too. So, and be proud of what we did back in 2020, 2021. We were thinking instead of having to say, sorry, kids, we didn't quite have the character to do it. And so we just kicked the can down the road to you guys. That's not our job. That is our job to do the next right thing. And this is slapping us in the face. And providing as much, without being any more specific, providing as much community benefit, broad community benefit that to opportunities that we have. Obviously, we've got a physically aging library facility, that we'll need to address that. As Michael Wild, and I'm surprised we haven't said much more about it, finding a way, both organically or even in some incentivized way, to extend Independence Lane north to George and south to south through and across Ventress and Pack, so that we can set up ourselves ultimately with a 4-block stroll. That's going to be pretty damn cool. That somebody said, wow, that was a good idea. Forget comparisons to Park Avenue. If Park Avenue could be redeveloped, it wouldn't look like it does today. I promise. And we can do that. So that is something that we can set up frameworks for that to be able to happen. And that becomes, a high priority, hopefully with you guys. I know it has been for me from the get-go because I still go back to Tomek days where the dream was to have a city hall and all of that down there on that combined parcels down there. So that's going back 15 years. So those would be my thoughts. Does that help, Sharon, or anybody
Yes.
else? At least obviously to me, we're all very much aware from a traffic standpoint that the congestion that we haven't seen for several months as much because we haven't got as many people out. The city of Maitland and the city of Winter Park, for example, are pass-through, drive-through communities. South Seminole County, north part of Orange County, Altamont. There are only 3 ways to get to I-4 from there. Either 436, Howell Branch, Horatio, Aloma, Fairbanks. And they're all clusters of immense proportions. we will not be able to do much, if anything, to control how many cars need to come through Maitland, through Winter Park. We can just simply try to manage it. And now with a 6-lane Maitland Boulevard happening before our eyes between Maitland Avenue and the interstate, basically, the impediment that the stoplight, for example, at Maitland Avenue and Maitland Boulevard at grade becomes a regional problem for South Seminole County, North Orange County, because you got such limited ways to get to I-4. So these are things that we're going to need to consider. I sit on the Metro Plan board now, and we've now been able to get ourselves on their transportation improvement program and trying to exponentially ascend that priority list, as well as a part of even going as far ahead as their 25 or 2045 long range master plan. So trying to think far ahead.
Hey, Dale, would I be right in this is what I've heard, and since you sit on the board, you would probably know, since Maitland borders Seminole County, and back to your point that a lot of the traffic that we have comes from Seminole, that the county is more reluctant to give us funds to improve our roads since they're really being used by Seminole County, and they want to focus those funds more of like in the middle of Orange County, where it's pretty much Orange County residents.
Well, remember this, Vance, and you're partial, to a small degree, right? That remember, Metro Plan is a regional transportation authority, Orange, Seminole, and Osceola County, and we're working together in that way. So the fact that we become Maitland Avenue, Maitland Boulevard becomes a regional problem, not just a Maitland problem. And we tend to, and these guys, the transportation guys all get this, and there was zero pushback in getting us on this list, this priority list, this long-term planning list. Now I won't even tell you the stories, how bad it is. Those of you that have had to deal with it in the morning or afternoon know how bad it is already. And that's without a 6-lane Maitland Boulevard. But we will have to continue to push our way up that list, because now, much like with our mobility group, we are a regional group with 4 Seminole County cities and us in Orange. We cross county lines. We're going to be more and more of a force as that group continues to evolve. But no, Metro Plan Vance is very much aware, and as it's given no consideration whatsoever that to focus things in central Orange County or Orange County at all, because even the chairman of the Metro Plan Board is Bob Delary, Seminole County Commissioner. So no, we're Maitland will not be ignored in the process. Trust me.
Okay. That was just some talk I had heard in the past, and I just wanted to.
No, and Sharon, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure any Maitland mayors ever sat on the Metro Plan Board before. That's a whole nother discussion. But we've been able to, in so many ways, and Mike is aware of this, I think, from in his long experience with the Sentinel, Maitland is no longer going to be ignored. So, and not that we have been ignored necessarily, but a lot of folks are clearly aware that we are exquisitely located. And so there are so many other municipalities, trust me, that would give up body parts to have the problems that we have.
Apparently 7 or 8 sitting circuit judges in Orange County live in Maitland. Fun fact.
Imagine that. Yeah, I should have tried to contact them all for our charter review commission, but they can't do that. So I only spoke to one. So I understand. So we have so much going our way. And again, without sounding any more like, a high school football coach giving a pregame speech, which I'm very capable of doing, that guys, we are city leaders and people are looking to us to lead. And we have the benefit of being able to see how connected all of this is. And I think I've preached this to all of you at different times. So it's up to us to show the resolve and the character to go do the next right thing. So, again, I can do this all day. I know you want me to do that. Sharon, does that help?
Yep. Do you want to, it's 10:30. We've been at it like an hour and a half. Does anyone want to take like a 10 or 15-minute break to go take care of business? whatever other work business you got.
Actually, I've been taking breaks all.
Yeah.
I do need to step away just for a minute, but we
Yeah.
don't need a break. I don't feel like we need a break, but I do need to step away just for like 5 minutes.
I like
Well-
5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes? Okay. All right. So it's 10:30. So 10:35, we'll all be
Yes.
back.
Just stop video and mute.
Just what?
Do I hit stop video and mute and come? Is that the best way to do it?
You can mute if you want, you can just let it roll. It shouldn't matter that much.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
I've got a conflict here coming up, Dale, so I may be
Yeah.
offline for a little bit,
That's okay. You're excused.
but I'll be back.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, Mark, since you're there, can you look into the feasibility, or have we ever looked into the feasibility of doing like a fiber optic cable line through the city for our residents?
We've never looked at it, no.
Because I know there's a lot of cities like, is it Nashville or is it Louisville? Louisville, Kentucky did it. And they've managed to make themselves an actual tech hub because the downtown core was able to install fiber optic lines for the residents. And now they literally created a cottage tech industry because they had fast data. If we want to redevelop the West Side, we should be offering something no one else has, which is fiber.
Do they not have fiber on the west side?
I mean, like a dedicated fiber line as opposed to everybody using Spectrum.
I don't know. I don't know. We have to look into that, see what's actually available out there, because there are providers that do provide fiber.
But like a city owned, maybe a community owned, we could partner with Castleberry and I mean, heck, you know what? Eatonville's putting in that massive new server. That thing is pulling a huge amount of speed. We should be able to tap into that.
Well, we'll be talking about that here in a few minutes.
I'm just, if we don't have anything on it, I would love for us to start researching that as an issue and a project. And I'll bring it up with everybody else.
Yeah, we're gonna start, that's what we're gonna do now, is start prioritizing things, seeing what, where we want to go with these
Okay.
areas we just talked about.
Sharon, I want to talk further about the fiber. I was just talking to Mark about it.
Okay.
Yeah, Google Fiber is not available at my address, which means the downtown core, basically.
Lindsay, anybody else back yet?
Yeah, so Lindsay's
Okay.
back. Mhm.
I'm right here.
Yeah, I had a inspector out here. We had a big tree branch fall on our house.
Oh, no, on
Yeah.
your house?
Yeah, huge one. Also, that storm, it ripped off the rain gutters, believe it or not. Just
You know-
so much tree branches and leaves, and then the rain was so heavy it just pulled it away from the house.
I think we had a microburst here in Maitland because the awning on the building, that strange building on Horatio where the title company and Remax are,
Right.
the top awning, their red awning, was sheared off on 2 of the panels. And further along on that little side road back behind, that driveway that goes back behind the Montessori,
Right.
there's a house and part of their roof, their panels are down from their fence. But then there's another fence that's between those 2 things that also has a piece of fence down.
Right.
And you can draw a straight line between those 3 things. And I think there actually was some sort of event that occurred.
Yeah. I
And you might have
I
been
don't know about you
unprotected.
guys. I had probably 5 people knock on my door yesterday about roofs, and then I even had a phone call.
Mm.
So we had some really aggressive people out here too. One kind of told off one of the neighbors, and then I have a neighbor who's in her 80s, lives by herself. They kind of were the same group was trying to forcibly get on her roof to do a, to look it over, and then they were trying to sell her. And luckily her son lives here, and she's like, oh, my son does everything. So that kind of stopped him from aggressively pushing the business on her.
Ugh.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was all Laurel. It's Laurel Oak. Back to my point, these Laurel Oaks, they're all 50 years old.
And they only have,
Hey.
50+ year lifespan is it,
Yeah.
but they were cheap.
Oh
and
yeah.
they grow fast. And so they look good quicker.
And they're beautiful, but yeah. I mean, the trees in our yard, we're just slowly having to cut them down one after the other after the other.
Yeah. You've had to take some down? Yeah.
Mhm. When we first moved, I mean, you talk about deferred maintenance. When we moved into this house, the prior owner, she was the original owner, had the house built back in 1983 and lived in it ever since. And as she got older and her husband's pension was no longer taking care of things, the house really needed a lot of maintenance when we moved in. And one of the big expensive things was taking out a bunch of trees. So
Yeah. In fact, I just had this tree trimmed for the season, for hurricane season.
yeah.
And, and I mean, even those guys, the tree guys, didn't see that it was a bad branch.
Right.
Yeah.
They were
No.
probably up there crawling on it at the time. So,
Yeah, one of the few trees that's remaining on our property is actually right near the front. And we've had that thing trimmed all the way back so that it's safe and it's good. And we still ended up with a limb that came down and actually blocked the road. So,
Wow. Well, we are a city full of deferred maintenance,
Yeah.
and I was about to tease you with an 83 house. You got one of the new houses in Maitland.
right, I know.
and
Here's
back to
another little,
Dale's
here's
point
another
earlier,
tip.
that, I mean, it's all galvanized. I mean, my house is galvanized,
Yeah.
terracotta, same thing. I mean, that's probably 85% of Maitland.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and another little tidbit that you may not have known, I actually bought my house back in 1992 from Bev Reppinen and her husband. So she was always very familiar with 108 Tangelo Court. And so I did a big renovation back in 07 and did a little bit of add-on. And the first person that wanted to see it was Bev.
Mm-hmm.
So had to walk her through it, and it was fine. She loved seeing it. Oh, that's a great idea. I never thought about that, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was built in 74. And in the subdivision I'm in Hollyanna, that was one of the newer houses. Because the vast majority of the houses were built in 55, 56, 57. When Mr. Clayton had developed an old piece of dead grove. And so that went all the way down to frontage on the lake. And for the subdivision, I don't have one of those, but again, great location.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, again, we are a city full of deferred maintenance. And that's not Sharon's fault. It's not Mark's fault. But we just, for some reason, have had a council that's wanted to kind of ride that as long as possible because that might be politically expeditious.
Sharon, have we started up again or are we still on break?
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Do you have any budget numbers?
Yeah.
To kind of look
You
at
should mention that.
what we're facing?
Sure. Before we leave all of the visioning piece, Lindsay had one, you wanted to talk about fiber before we move on to budget?
Yeah, I do just want to talk about it because I think that it's something that, if we want to have some control over creating something on the west side that is going to be attractive and is going to be meaningful, we have to look at what is required over there to attract the future. And the thing that is necessary is going to be infrastructure that makes it that a business wants to set up in the city and wants to be a part of the future. And, you know, I've known for many years that Louisville, Kentucky put in their own fiber optic line as a city. They made it their own utility. And they are now a tech hub because of it. They have residents coming to their city on purpose, moving to rural Louisville, Kentucky. But I mean, honestly, like moving from the coasts, right? You're talking people from the coast who think that the center of the country is a rural place.
Yeah, fly over.
And they're moving there because there is infrastructure in place that is creating a place for, you know, small startups to be able to thrive. And in this current climate with the virus, look who's doing fine. The people who work from home, the people who have
Choices.
high-speed internet and right. So if we're going to create infrastructure, let's look at something that is the future. And we could build our own fiber optic line as a city, and we could offer that to our residents, and we could also offer it to the businesses.
I couldn't agree more.
There's a huge, and we don't have to do it ourselves. You know, let's join up with Castleberry. Let's join up with Eatonville. And if Winter Park wants to play, they can come join us, you know, but Eatonville's getting that huge new warehouse tech hub that's just going to be a massive server space. And on the old Hungerford land, that thing is going to be pushing so much data that why don't we plug into it? It's right there.
That's not a given anymore, you know, Lindsay, but you are right. Fabulous location, great opportunities. And we are linked at the hip with Eatonville forever.
Right.
And,
let's bring some opportunity to the area.
Yeah. So yeah, the logistics of that and what I was been hearing from all of you, particularly in regards to, you know, small business and larger West Side business, is the need for, you know, a vacancy that we have now with an economic development person. Robert does a fabulous job with what he has done for us. That we can't thank him enough.
If Robert's listening, I holistically concur. Absolutely. You are doing a
Robert,
phenomenal job.
Robert's a rock star.
Yeah. And, you know, we're not going to let this count as an evaluation, but, you know, we are light years beyond where we have ever been. And he's done a fabulous job of bringing us into the 21st century of understanding who we can be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been fabulous. But again, on a bigger, broader view, and taking some of, you know, some things off of Robert's plate, which is so full already, you know, at economic development slot is screaming at us. All right, Mike, you ready? Or Sharon, you want to jump back?
Sure. Yep. So really, I wanted to be the wet blanket before you began your dreaming, because that's how I roll. But Dale stole and let you be dreamers. So just to give you a COVID update, we do have several employees who have tested positive and 4 who are quarantined and testing. So it's here within city staff.
What's that number?
So there's 3 employees, there's 4 total who tested positive. 1 is recovered, 3 are out, and 4 more are being tested and in quarantine. So it's not all one department, it's kind of a mishmash. So it's here, we know it's everywhere. It's really, we're doing everything we can. We're doing masks, you know, hand sanitizer, cleansing, anything we can. A lot of our employees just can't work remotely because what they do involves physical labor, and their supervisors need to be here to supervise them. So we're just following all the CDC guidelines. Fire department assists us in sanitizing when necessary. They have a sanitizing, an aeroclave is what they call it. But where we are now is where we left off. It's cautionary spending only. So, you know, obviously no travel, no training. If we don't need it, we're not buying it. If it doesn't need to get done, we're just sort of keeping that money to the side. Now, everything that's started continues to go. So, Independence Square is going, sidewalks are finishing up, all those things continue. But we are assuming that this is, you hear different timeframes, but my guess is just based on 08, it was a 4-year recovery, and that didn't even have the unemployment numbers, and it never impacted sales tax. So for 21, ad valorem is okay, but that was consistent in 08. It took a year for that to fall, and then it fell 12%, 9%, 1%, 3% before it came back. So it was a 4-year fall before we even started, and we didn't get back till I think 17, maybe 2017 is when we actually got back to where we were in 2008. So we're, at this point, I don't know what it's going to do to property values. I've seen it all across the board. Home values are still up, inventory and sales are down. So I don't, that seems to be offsetting each other for right now. But if people start losing their jobs, that's when we, permanently or for a long period of time, that's where we see those numbers. And of course, Class A, Class B, and Class C commercial office space. I already know of several people who've canceled their leases in Maitland Center. They don't need them anymore. They've been working from home, and everybody seems to like that. So we shall see. But right now, cautionary spending only. We are freezing positions as they're vacated. At this point, we have about $600,000 in savings from that. Some positions we just have to fill because they're water, wastewater, fire, police, and we have, minimum staffing for those. So those positions are still open, but budget analyst, accounts payable, we've got a number of them that are frozen. And we will present those to you when we give you the budget book. It'll tell you which positions are frozen and who's doing the work and where we're going from there. But the current 20 revenue shortfall, I'm sure many of you saw the sales tax numbers were horrific. So if they continue in the path that they're currently in, we expect to lose $800,000 in sales tax between now and September 30th. $200,000 in revenue sharing. Revenue sharing has been cut to, it's 1/3 of what it was previous to COVID. Red light cameras are down, but that's due to some of the cameras actually coming down for Maitland Boulevard, and as well as reduced traffic. And interest rates are basically non-existent. So
Yeah.
all of those negatives offset by some strange positives that we've had, which is basically, I guess, people staying home and using a lot of electricity, means we'll end up with about a $1.3 million shortfall for this year between the personnel savings, the cell tower payment, and other savings we've put on hold. We'd still see a positive to fund balance. And that's where I think, we made it through 08 by cautionary spending, which is, I think we need to have money in the bank for 22 money, because we were able to draw out of those savings. God forbid we have a hurricane. FEMA's not very timely in repaying us, so we outlay a lot of cash, and then again, we still haven't even got 50% of our IRMA money back at this point. So we're trying to put money in fund balance so that if it's a 2 or a 3 year downturn, we won't have to increase the millage rate. Again, you may choose to increase the millage rate, but it's one of those, I think, as Mike Thomas mentioned, it's a terrible time to do it. But what normally happens is if property values go down, their tax bills go down anyways. You know what I mean? So they do get relief from reduced property values. But there's a lot of built up homestead savings. I don't know, how long it would take for people to see relief in their tax bill. So we are returning to virtual meetings. I think the governor has extended it through August, or we are canceling board and commission. We have a P&Z meeting, which we'll do virtually because there is business to conduct. But in terms of PRAB and other, if they don't have something that needs to happen, we just don't think we should take the risk of having them meet. We'll do it virtually as long as the governor lets us do that. So I don't know if you had any questions on any of those numbers as you apply those to 21. it just gets worse. You know, I mean, these numbers just get worse. You can just, it'd be $6 million out of the budget if it continues at that rate.
How does that, what is the projection to get to worse? I mean, obviously our ad valorem is going to remain up.
It's right. Ad valorem is set. So, you know, it was set as of December 31st, but that might not reflect what those values are today. They may already have declined if it's commercial office space.
Right, right.
Or retail, you know, retail space.
The Sentinel's reporting today that housing values are down 20% over May.
That's somewhere else. That's not Maitland. That's
Yeah.
not factual for us.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dale
Florida?
Dale
I-
sends me the report each month.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to avoid that tsunami in Maitland is kind of hopeful thinking. We might not fall as deeply as other areas, but when everything around us goes down, I don't think we're going to dodge the bullet.
We have several very high value properties right now on the market, which when a little bit of research into the current owners is done through public record reviewing, you can start to realize that that person owns larger businesses that are part of the hospitality industry or other industries that are affected right now, and they may be cashing out on their bigger assets to try and liquidate. So I think we need to be careful about what we are excited about if some of those properties that are on the higher end are being cashed out.
Right. So again, we're doing our best to pull the budget together. But 22, 23, and 24, you know, if I put these declining ad valorem values in there, it just looks devastating. So, so we'll continue to monitor it, but I guess what I didn't want is, you know, so going through, if we do the dots, you know, what I hear sort of consistently is pedestrian improvements, whether it's sidewalks or walkability downtown. That's a big priority for the 1 to 3 years. The library came up several times. Undergrounding, essentially an undergrounding plan, which is no small task, given that we have to get the information from Duke because it's not our system. But yeah, so we're relying upon them, and Mark's getting a number on Domrick. So we'll have an idea of what that would cost. And I just don't think you're going to have the money in the next 3 years to underground Domrick. It's going to be north of $2.5, $3 million. Which, you know, I think
How much are we spending in Greenwood Gardens?
we spent 800,000, I think. And then we will assess them for meter conversion, which is not over 10 years. So
Right.
yeah, but that was street lights and undergrounding, and they only
Which
pay
would
for.
be in Domrick also.
It'll be the same thing in Domrick, but it's a much larger. There's only, Mark, how many houses did you have? 70 something out of the 90?
453 in Domrick Estates itself.
74 in Greenwood Gardens.
So that 74 homes was 800,000. And I can tell you it's more complicated in Domrick because they need to put some switchgear some places.
Yeah.
And we don't
yeah.
have any real property in that area. But again, we'll get that number and then that'll give you an idea. But Fort Maitland boat ramp seems like we need to step back and really talk about what you want to do there. The library came up again, sidewalks, Duke Energy, Independence Lane, north and south. So we can't do everything. And so when I hear things that are repeated, I mean, I'll bring all of the stuff back in a report, but we need to focus. And then I guess my concern is that you're aware that we're not going to have cash to throw at even sidewalks in my mind. You know, my best, and I talked to Mark about this and Jerry, is I think you could have that money in fund balance. And if by the time December or January rolls around, things are not bad, things are looking good, you can always pull that out of fund balance. But once you spend it, you can't undo the sidewalk because you need that money for police and fire or, you know,
Right.
whatever's going on, hurricanes. I would just say, it doesn't mean those plans are, and that I would put them on hold, would be my, if we want to do some planning on undergrounding, that's, we can certainly do that and talk about the library but I just don't think you want to spend big chunks of money right now.
Sharon, on Fort Maitland, is that money already in the park fund? Is there?
Yeah, it's in the park fund but and you and I have talked about this, but I can share it with everyone. So we took money way back when, and it's state of Florida money, and
Right.
you can't even pay it back. They won't take the money back. So we took money and we said, we will give the public access to this chain of lakes here. So the only way we can not have access to the general public is if we find another access point. So in other words, you got to do one for one. You can't just say, here's your money back.
Is there what is the definition of provide access to the public? Are we mandated to provide X number of parking spaces?
No, I think that's where, and we will double check, but no, it was about the ramp. So parking, we can reduce the number of, we'd have to give up the grant that we have now, but that's fine. We can reduce the parking spaces. It's just thinking about how, like Dinky Dock only has 4,
Right.
and then make the rest of them kayak or paddleboard spaces or something like that, So that's what I'm saying. I don't think we're not going to go forward with anything at this point, because it sounds like we need to discuss where you want to go with that. I mean, I know we want to have the police boathouse be a deck. We want a kayak launch, but if we're going to reduce the number of parking spaces, then we can't accept the state of Florida grant that we applied for, because it requires us at least adding a space. And that may greatly reduce the project. What you want to do there other than a playground and the boat dock. I just don't know how you do resident only parking. I know Windermere does it. My sister-in-law is a police officer there, and I know how they do it. They only have 3,000 residents. And so they actually put police officers down there at the ramp, because now people are giving their codes away. So they have officers checking, that's what she does every weekend, checking your driver's license, your address, your passcode to make sure you're a resident. And I mean, that's a lot of effort.
Well, I don't want to get bogged down in.
You could just reduce the
Fort
number of
Maitland,
spaces
but-
to 6 or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
So we will have more, we'll bring you back
Yeah.
the full, before we spend a dime on Fort Maitland, we'll all sit
Yeah.
down and talk about what the options are. And,
Okay. Well, let's
And then
just move on to the bigger picture here of.
Well, I got one question. So Sharon, excuse me, but so are we going forward with the rest of the sidewalk on Domrick, correct?
yes, Choctaw's almost done. They're down to the last 2. So then at that point, I think we had, Mark knows, 1.2 million in a year for sidewalks.
Yeah.
That's what Michael was saying, Domrick Drive all the way to.
Okay, but remember, we haven't designed anything on
Oh, yeah,
Domrick
okay.
Drive. The next design we have is Mohican. It's complete. So we'd have to do a design job on that to extend it down Domrick.
And one of the things that we've been working on, and I actually got some good feedback from residents, is repairing the sidewalk we currently have. So, yeah, so I want to leave that money in the budget. That's a safety issue, and they're out there now doing it. And really, I've had several residents call and say, I'm so glad you're doing that. I walk all the time and I see, the trees have lifted stuff. And so they're doing a significant amount of that. And he still has a significant amount to do next year just to keep the sidewalks. And that's not even, Horatio, you can do what you can do on those sidewalks, but they're kind of a
We're
mess.
just talking about sanding them down when they get
Yeah,
lifted.
well, and pulling and repouring, pulling up pieces and repouring.
Yeah.
But that is, once you put a sidewalk in, I mean, we are required to do that, pressure wash the bike paths, and that stuff needs to keep going.
So the Mohican sidewalk is basically connecting sections of sidewalk to provide an uninterrupted sidewalk path to the schools there. Is that? So that would probably be a safety issue, unfortunately, the way some people drive through there.
Yeah,
So that's next up, and what is that, about 500,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will keep moving with the design and
Now Mohican has sidewalks on one side now. Right?
right.
I may put that in the form of a question.
It's the kid, yes. It's the kids
What-
coming from the north though, and
Okay.
from the west.
All right.
Yeah, so it would connect, kids are, I don't know why they're coming down and you know how it sort of has a mid-block crossing randomly in the
Right.
middle
Oh,
where
yeah.
there is no side, yeah. So it's be
Yeah.
cleaning that up, but so we'll be coming forward with that design. Now you can always pull money out of fund balance and go, yes, we feel good about it's December and everything's better and Disney's open and tourists are coming from everywhere. Pull the money out of fund balance, award the bid and go forward. It doesn't preclude you just because we don't have it budgeted at the beginning of the year doesn't mean you can't pull it
Right.
forward and go ahead and go forward with it. I just don't think I'm going to be able to balance, and I'm not sure this is a year you want to pull money out of fund balance.
Yeah. Let me ask one.
Unless things are changing.
Yeah, let me ask one very fundamental question in terms of, our reserves relative to our annual budget. Do we have a percentage of that? I know we're about 25 million on our annual budget. Our fund reserves, or maybe
So-
non-designated fund reserves?
Well, we are big believers in designations. So
Right.
we have a designation for emergencies, and that is unanticipated revenue loss, tornado, fire, whatever it is, hurricanes, and that's 15%. So it's somewhere close to $4 million that you have in there
Right.
for natural
Virus.
disasters. Yeah, whatever. We also have a loss fund, but this is for, a $3 million cleanup or whatever it's going to be. Then we have a designation for vehicles. We cash fund our vehicles so that you don't ever have to go, do we need to buy, can we afford to buy this or that? We fund depreciation, but that's our internal designation. It's not legally restricted. We
Right.
set these designations. So in total, it's about 14 million. So it's averaged somewhere between 45 and 60% of our revenues.
Of our budget expectation, right?
Right.
So that, isn't it great to have a CPA for a city manager?
But I think that the comfort is knowing it's there and not using it, just like anybody else's savings
Yeah,
account,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, you love knowing it's in the bank.
right. But, but other things, paving, like, we want to keep the condition of the roads. So we want to keep some paving, even if it's the micro surfacing that they're doing now. So we want to keep doing the repair and maintenance items.
Mhm.
So, because I can tell you in 08, I think we let a lot of things just
Go.
and that was probably not to our benefit. On water and wastewater, we're going to move forward with those projects because they have their own funding source.
Yep.
Now, right now, we are not turning people off because we are in a state of emergency. So we're not shutting them off. We're not having them accrue penalties, but I can tell you, we're going to have some people that are going to be months behind. They're just choosing not to pay it. Because we told them, if you can pay something, please pay it, but it's not the right time to turn people off. But we do have people abusing that,
Yeah.
just-
Sharon, just out of, what kind of increase are we seeing in delinquent payments? Is it,
none of your commercial or it's mostly residential and it's the same people. They're, it's the same people, but now we're not turning them off. So they're just not paying. And
oh,
so,
okay, gotcha.
yeah, it's not like we're not, and we did not see that before in 08. We were pretty
Okay.
lucky with a low number of foreclosures. But I'm just afraid we're going to be creating a big debt for these particular people to ever get out of. So at some point, we're going to send them a letter to say, you need to start paying. They won't pay unless we turn them off. And again, we're in a
Okay.
state of emergency. It's not appropriate to turn them
Yeah,
off. It won't-
you don't
Yeah.
want,
No,
Okay.
and nobody else is, Duke
Okay.
is not. I saw Kissimmee Utilities did turn somebody off, which I was
Yes.
surprised.
City
Yeah.
of Miami has reinstated shutoffs.
I just think when the governor has declared a state of emergency, it's kind of difficult to
yeah.
turn somebody's basic needs off.
I
And
agree.
it's not driving our fund into, if that was the case, if we saw a huge, nobody's paying their bills, then there'd be a problem. But it's really, I know the names, so I.
Yeah, because Semi owns their own utilities also.
Right. And again, I mean, I think it's a large motel or something they turned off. So it could be
Yeah.
that that's a huge bill. We're not seeing, you know, the apartment complexes are paying, commercial are paying. It's really some folks that
Sharon,
struggle to
once we
pay.
Once we
Go
cut them off, do we require them to become current before we turn them back on?
We make payment plans with them. You know what I
Okay.
mean? We'll make a payment plan. And as long as they make their payments, we just don't want them to go backwards. So usually it's like pay 50% of what you owe. Well, these people are not going to be able to pay 50% of what they've now accumulated for March, April, May, and
Correct.
June. Yeah. So that's why I think we'll start reaching out to them to make payment plans. I just don't want to do it in a way that looks like we're hurting people who are already.
Right, and that
Start-
was my concern is maybe,
Yeah.
we could be a little more lenient with that, but it seems like, you've already got that in control.
Yeah, I think not assessing penalties helps them because those penalties just make things worse. I mean, they
Right.
just get you in a hole, but just saying we're going to keep you penalty free, even if we give them 12 months to come, to make their regular payment plus a small amount. But just want you to be aware. I mean, we're not there, but
Yeah,
at some point,
it's gonna have to happen.
it's gonna have to happen, yeah. But we'll do everything not to have that happen. But so we're moving forward with wastewater projects. And I told Dale if you guys are up for it, I can run down some of the current projects and just where we are. So you just have an idea. Sandspur Trail is finishing up the bike trail. The only thing we have left is the crossing. The crossing at Maitland Avenue and the signal. So the signal has to be fabricated. So it's 6 months out. But other than that, people are on it and it looks really nice.
Right. And I'll send you
Independent-
that picture of what I was talking about the other day, that little, to access from the school to the sidewalk.
Okay.
I'll send that to you.
Independence Square, if you haven't been out here, they are moving lightning speed. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be fantastic. Lake Lily Staircase is starting under construction, and that's getting people from the parking lot down to the overlook without traipsing through the mulch and roots because it's a liability issue. We have remediated and re-roofed the police substation.
Remediated, what a nice term.
Yes, it was left by the previous tenant had just let it sort of go. So, but the greater project sort of on hold. What we've done is said, let's not let it get any worse. Let's clean it up, get the roof on. And then if we want to, we'll have to bring it to you guys to go, is this important enough to do it, to move it forward now? And
To
there we
use it as a police substation on the east side of town.
Community police. It'll be community police department. So there'll be the guys in the community policing where they could have their bikes, or if we have a downtown event, that would be sort of their home base where they could, come back and forth to. And officers on this side of town, they often come into City Hall. They could go over there,
Yeah,
So it would be relocating community police from the offices on the west side to something more centrally located and close to downtown. So there'd be more
whenever I get to see them on a bicycle, I'm thrilled.
Okay, right, but something more visible. They wanted some sort of a presence that's, the community would know where they are.
And that was a priority from years ago.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what was the cost on that one?
So I think we estimated about $250 to do everything, which is redo the flooring, redo the bathrooms, paint it, re-landscape it. I mean, it's a mess. Buy them furniture, computers. We need a server. We need Wi-Fi. So we were looking for an allowance to just make it happen. And then they'll be good for, at least 10 years. So it's cheaper than renting. We kind of looked at what would be cheaper because we used to rent in one of the buildings on Maitland Avenue, but it just doesn't have, they want to have something that has the, Maitland Police Department not be in a commercial office building. Or be behind the castle that they're in over on Fennell.
I love it when she's discreet. Go ahead.
The state and legislative agenda coordination. So the legislature completed, we had 2 bills, but we didn't get funding on either of them. So those were no-goes. But we do perhaps have a potential for some funding that we can keep going forward for the sewer, for the Mayo sewer. Greenwood
Yes.
Gardens electric conversion. So the conversion is done. If you haven't been out there, you can go look street lights and underground, and we just need to bring it back to you. You will assess them for the meter conversion, which is us hiring an electrician to convert their meters over, and they pay for that over 10 years on their property tax bills.
Are we anticipating subsidizing that?
No, no. Well, we did all the undergrounding and the street lights. What they pay for is the meter conversion.
Right.
Yeah. So all the rest is us.
There.
Yeah. Land development code overhaul. We just did the downtown stuff. So as you know, it's underway. Lift station 1, it slowed down a little bit, and it's one of Mike Thomas's priorities. So we're looking for the first of the year, potentially to start lift station 1 and then move forward to the subsequent phases. So we're looking at sometime.
That's a lift station out Tuscarora.
Right. And then all of the, what, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you said it'd be January?
Looking to start well, we would be, I guess, bidding it out in the fall
Okay,
with a construction start for January,
okay.
assuming
Is
we
this
get.
one we rename the Mike Thomas lift station?
We can, if he wants it named after him.
That's all right, Mike, you got to die first. Never mind.
Well, and in that one, we only got one bid last time, so we're really gonna have to like shake the trees to get contractors out to have a bunch of,
Hopefully there's gonna be a more hungry contractors.
Yeah.
you hope, but yeah. Well, we'll get we'll get it out to as many as we can, so we have some competition and we know that the numbers are what the numbers are. All of the wetlands, if you've been out there, all those projects have been started and underway. Community Park, Minnehaha Park, Tuscarora, Temple, Lake Sibilia Point, and Lake Sibilia Shoreline all started and underway with the removal of the exotics, invasives. The 1792 water main and lift station 6 force main, those projects are starting. And I sent you an email yesterday just to let you know, it will be, it can't be in the road, so it's under the sidewalk in some places. Taking out trees and then putting trees back. So when you see that, don't be shocked. I think you all know the railroad quiet zones. Finally, since 2012 or before, working on those, it's finally happened. So if you're someone that was hearing all those horns before, it should be quieter during the day.
Quieter.
Quieter, not silent. Domrick Choctaw we talked about. So they finished Domrick. They're finishing up Choctaw, but there's some road work that's going to be going on for a while. And then we will come back in at the end and re-landscape the 2 triangle pieces, the sort of like mini parks at Algonquin, and then and not Arapahoe, what's the other one? Apache and Algonquin. So, bench, some nice landscaping, some shade trees, and make it like a mini park for the neighbors.
No campers.
No.
Thank
Can't
you.
plant them. Yeah, no, can't plant those. We have a design already in it. They were, Mark, they're live oaks, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, live oaks. Not laurels, live. Lift station 17, lift station 17 and 42 rehabs are both underway. Lift station 8 underway. So we got a lot of infrastructure projects going at the same time. Howell Branch Park repairs, that's an erosion. I know we got 3. Mark, has that one started yet? The erosion under the sidewalk at
No.
Howell Branch Park? No. So we got some quotes, so that needs to happen. Yeah. So that'll go forward. The roadway paving, we went with microsurfacing, and that's underway. It ended up costing about 50% of traditional milling and repaving. So we still have some money left from that. We may want to go ahead and do another set of streets, just so that, we stay ahead. We don't let them degrade, even if we can't afford the full milling and repaving. It's good for a number of years, and,
So this would just be based on the PCR rating?
Yeah. So if it's in good enough shape, you can micro surface it, if it doesn't
Right.
need, it doesn't have a lot of issues. And so it only costs 50% of what we had budgeted. So we may be able to go ahead and do 21s with the rest of this and then sort of get ahead of the game, move them up with the micro surfacing. If
Do we have a dollar figure assigned to that?
it was
Yeah.
like $500,000 a year, I think, for
All right.
milling and resurfacing, this cost about 250 for the same number of roads.
Well, that's what I was wondering. So we might be able, and I'm making this up, but to theoretically
Do
double up
twice
on
as many.
trees.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
And buy ourselves another 5 years, 10 years.
7, maybe. 7.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
Thank
But at least it doesn't let them degrade, which is kind of what happened during the last recession is, when they get too bad, then you can't, I think a good example would be Keller Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keller Road's going to be a complete reconstruction. Mohican Trail Sidewalk, we talked about that is designed and working with the final easements and conflicts and issues to and get a price number from the CMAR once we have all those. Sandspur Road and Maitland Avenue traffic signal, we did order we're getting ready to order the
Mast arm.
Yeah, the mast arm. Now, we also had Horatio and Maitland Avenue scheduled for a mast arm. And Mark and I talked about this yesterday. I'm not sure we have any funds to do that right now, given how much it's going to cost. But the traffic control specialist said there's no signalization, there's no real issues with it it's not going to fall down and stop working. So we'll just.
Wouldn't break my heart a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the mast arms are, I don't know, what was 450,000. Yeah. But I mean, it's pricey, and then the right-of-way street tree replacement program has pretty much been on hold. Mike DiClementi's been out and Mike DiClementi's been out, but we talked about maybe restarting in the fall. It's a little too hot right now to restart that up, but starting again in the fall and also doing a tree giveaway. And if we have to do it more virtually, we'll do it virtually. Let people email us, tell us what type of tree, and then schedule a drive-through pickup. And so, sort of a no-touch service. And that's all of the projects, sorry to babble on, that we have scheduled. There's some smaller ones, but those are the major ones that are moving forward.
So Sharon, I saw the other day, there was a couple crepe myrtles and oaks going up on Sandspur. That was the city replacing the trees that we had to take out while doing the sidewalk.
Correct. Yes.
Good.
They're replanting.
That's good to
Yeah,
know.
the
People
understory.
say, oh, they're just killing trees. Well, we've replanted and I think we
Right.
even probably put in 1 or 2 more than what we took out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and some of the ones we took out, like the Tababuyas, they were under canopy trees. They were like a stick and
Right.
so they tried to put understory trees that might actually survive.
Mhm.
And then a number of them we took down they had cavities. They were coming down one way or the other. And in fact, there's more there that could come down. Just don't want to upset the community, but there's some pine trees and some others that really,
Right.
and some on
subsidy also.
other people's property, but they should come down, but then it would have just been that self-fulfilling prophecy that we're ripping trees down. But just because it's still standing doesn't mean it's a tree
Good
that,
tree.
yeah.
Mhm.
Where are we on lakes? Are we gonna continue? I mean, we'll continue the maintenance of our lakes.
Oh,
correct?
yeah. Yeah. So the Stormwater Fund, we have a CIP for them. And it continues to those restoration projects. We'll
Mhm.
continue to put funds in to maintain those. She's put that in, which is new. Some additional funding for drainage issues. That seems to be sort of a big issue. So we've got, for drainage, we've got some water quality. We're trying to keep it balanced between water quality and flooding because those are, both issues. And
Right.
so we've got some flooding projects, we've got some water quality projects, and that'll continue to go forward. But the O&M is there, so street sweeping, all the stuff they're doing, the surveying, they're still doing all that.
Feel
Can I
sorry
ask
for
a
the
couple of-
gatekeeper. after the storm, I feel real sorry for the street sweeper. Hey, where are we with our consultant on the lakes? Are we retaining her, or with
Yeah.
what's going on? Are we just?
Yeah, so we have funds in there to continue to have Amy assist us with some of the things that are moving forward, as well as some help with the BMPs, some of the stuff that the engineers have been doing for us. As Carlos, the new Lakes Coordinator, gets up and running, we probably will rely on Amy less. But right now, we're utilizing her to help us. And then she'll go back to her traditional role, which was really sort of those community projects and those community outreach things.
Yeah. Lindsay, go ahead.
I have a couple of lakes questions, because we've been taking the kayaks out along the Nina Canal and out into Lake Maitland. A couple of things. One is, how often are we going through there or doing some sort of trash pickup? Because I'm now taking a plastic bag with me when we go kayaking, and I'm grabbing stuff out of the canal on the way. I know it's summertime, people, let's just hope that things fall off the boat or fall off the paddleboard. But what can we do? What can we be doing to improve that situation? Because I know I'm not the only one with trash bags, but and then my other concern is that right as you come from Lake Maitland right into the canal, there's a huge amount of grass that is accumulating right there it's kind of becoming boggy. And I'm concerned for the plants and the animals right there. And it looks like it's all just even level grass cuttings coming off of people's,
Dumping
yards
them into the canal. Yeah. I understand.
dumping, it's all just falling straight in, and then the lake's pulling it right into the canal. So it's creating kind of a bog at the end. So I don't know how to address that, but.
Now, those are compost piles. You don't get it, Lindsay.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you talking about where Lake Maitland and Lake Nina meet, or where Lake Nina and the canal
The
meet?
canal meet.
Where the canal comes into Lake Maitland.
Okay.
It's like it's all, I don't know,
Are they
I'm
tussocks?
assuming
Maybe tussocks?
it looks like somebody's weed whacking right along the water, the shoreline, and they're just dumping everything right into the lake.
Okay, well, we can certainly go out and look
Or
at
maybe
it.
it has something to do with like the way the current is pushing things into the canal. I don't know.
I know we've had a tussock problem before, like right at,
Nina.
yeah, like in Lake Nina, just
Yeah.
as you're getting into Lake Maitland. So, and the wind will blow them from one side to the other, and then the people push them back out, but they're like floating islands. Is that what
Yeah.
they look?
No, nothing that
No.
bad. It's just, it's like grass clippings. It's like
Yeah.
long, like water reed and stuff on the
Right.
shoreline.
Okay, well, we'll send someone out to look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are individual property owner issues there that you're talking about, Lindsay. And remember, we have our own bucket of cash from our stormwater lakes user fees that get used for some of this. And if I remember, I know we've talked about it, Mike, there's a pretty healthy balance there that has not been as efficiently utilized as we might have liked over the years.
Yes.
Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, to be honest, I'd almost like to see these lakes projects, that CIP list combined with our CIP list to determine real priorities. And if there's an adjustment where you lower the stormwater fee and offset that with the millage rate to basically just shift piles of money. I don't know what that would equate to, or even if that's doable, but I just thought of it at the moment.
It's a good idea.
Well,
the-
I think
what
the
is-
intent always was to add a level of care and long-term thinking into our lakes maintenance. And unfortunately, some of the optimistic views of cost of projects have been not exactly accurate.
So for example, if we weighed one of these CIPs from there against, say, a sidewalk that kids use to go to school, you know, where would we direct the money in that case if these weren't divided into two different pots of money, if they were the same pot? And so are things being prioritized that otherwise wouldn't be, just simply because they're in a different pot of money? So that's not to delve into now, but perhaps to think about down the road.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
and
aren't I correct in saying that with the money we get for our lakes and our water, our stormwater fees, it has to go to the stormwater fees? Is that correct? Or we can move it to anywhere we want? But
No, what I'm talking about,
it
Vance, is
has to stay stormwater.
let's say we determine that our the projects, other projects might be a higher priority than some of the stormwater projects. And I'm not saying there are, I'm just throwing this out there. So given the hefty fund balance in the stormwater fee, you can, let's say, lower the stormwater assessment by $1 a month or something like that, and then make up for that on the millage end, to raise an equal amount on the millage end. And that way you are sort of shuffling money around to meet higher priorities. And again, I'm not saying, you know, I don't know. I'm just
brainstorm.
So
just
but
for
there-
some history, just what you mentioned is the reason that there is a stormwater fund, because it used to compete in the general fund.
Yeah,
And it will tend to lose, it will tend to lose because people don't immediately see the benefit of, say, if you're not the person being flooded, then that flooding project on Gamewell doesn't really mean
Well,
as much.
I mean, if somebody's being flooded, obviously that's a priority. So, you know, I'm not, you know, taking money away from flood protection. I'm just, and I understand what you're saying, but we're in a pandemic with 22-23% unemployment. So that's and
Yeah, and-
we've got a big a nice pot of money that in fact, when I first looked at that fee and saw that they were just, you know, taxing people and putting money in the bank with no way to spend it for years and years and years, that's when we, you know, stopped raising that stormwater fee, because we were raising it just for the sake of raising it. And
no, we had citizens calling for it, Mike, you remember?
yeah,
And we still do.
we had citizen calling for it.
Yes, yes.
So anyway, I don't want to belabor that point, so I'm
Yeah.
just throwing it up.
Yeah, and let me just say, you haven't seen the new CIP, but I mean, I've seen
Yeah.
it. It's really mostly addressing structural flooding issues. I mean,
Okay,
that's
okay.
we've sort of prioritized, and then O&M, you know, keeping up with the street sweeping and the things that we know make a difference, that, you know, maintaining the structures we've already installed to make sure the baffle boxes are cleaned out. You know, you can't
Yeah.
install them and then ignore them because then they don't function anymore. So I know
Okay.
that Kim and Mark sat down and took a really close look at the entire budget for this, you know, so did Jerry, so did I. So
Okay,
I think when you see it, you'll see it's not
Yeah.
fluffy. Yeah.
okay.
Mark, quick question. Did we ever finish the mission that we had to be able to physically locate all our stormwater outlets around the city? I'm asking that question right?
Yeah, we've identified all the outfalls as part of our MPD.
Uploads, that's the word I'm
Yeah.
looking for, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So we just went through the audit about 2.5, 3 months ago. And everything's
Right.
back good. So we're moving into the next phases of that to make improvements to make sure we meet those NPDES requirements.
Perfect. Never mind, thank you. Go ahead, Sharon.
But that's pretty much all I had in terms of budgeting and where we are with projects. So
And we have a utilities bucket as well that we both borrowed from and are paying back to. So we'll get a better look at a capital improvements program for going out 5 years, correct?
Right. I mean, just to set your expectations.
Yeah,
It's pretty much going to be gutted for the next 3 years. Sorry. Unless it's water, wastewater, you know, or you guys say, we got to do this, because I just don't think the money's going to be there to do any of it without us, you know, to generate $2 million to do, or $3 million in 1 year to do an undergrounding project is a significant millage rate increase. And so, you know, we'll go, obviously you guys get to go through it and make that final call. I mean, if you want to increase the millage rate, then that really is within your purview. But we're trying to keep it to projects that need to be done. And again, in the last 4 years, we've done more parks and infrastructure projects than I think we did in the last 10 to 15.
yeah.
So we've still got stuff teed up and happening. So you won't see like things coming to a halt. That's not going to happen. We still have 1792 and the mast arms and Independence Square. Those are all going to be going into next year, you know what I mean? And then Lift Station 1 is a major, I mean, when that starts, that talk about disruption, you know, Choctaw will look like a day in the park. So things will still be happening, you know, that way, but your park trust fund will have basically
Zero.
well, it depends on what you do with Fort Maitland, 0 or maybe 2 more projects, maybe 2, it depends on what you do.
Small.
2, but there's no money coming in. There's no
Yeah.
money coming into mobility. There's no money. So those sort of funds, those we call them miscellaneous funds that have been funding some of the projects that you're seeing. Mobility was funding sidewalks. We are predicting 0 money coming in from developers on that.
I'm
And
not
Lynn's
inviting
getting,
you to my party anymore, Sharon.
What's that?
I said, I'm not inviting you to my party.
I know,
anymore.
nobody wants me at their party. They just don't. I just don't want it to be, because here's the bigger
I
issue.
fully appreciate it.
Yeah, we got to communicate that to people, because they didn't vote for Vance to do nothing. That didn't, you know, when the election was happening, it was like, boy, we got money to spend and what kind of projects are we going to do? We knew ad valorem was going up, and this is not the slow decline of 2008. This is like, we went off the edge of a cliff. And so I'm still getting phone calls as if nothing has happened. Like,
yeah,
you know, there's some water standing in front of my house, you know, who's going to come out and address it? It's like, we don't have funds for, you know, water that dries up in 2 or 3 days. That's just an inconvenience. You know, it's not going to grow mosquitoes. It's not going to flood your house. So I'm not sure that people have acclimated with the calls that I'm getting, and I'm sure Mark gets or sees. People are still expecting this level of service, and they don't get that we're constrained by the fact that we don't want to have a lot of public interaction. You know, none of us do. So we're trying to limit our employees' exposure. And so is everyone else. So getting Duke to come out and do something is like pulling teeth. They don't want their people exposed, because what happens if there's a hurricane? So it's a new reality that I don't know that everybody's figured out yet.
but that never slows down the self-interest that we hear of often.
Right. I just think I just want to set that. And then, I mean, again, if projects needs to happen, if it's, you know, again, we could keep moving forward with Mohican. It's been designed, and, you know, you still won't see a slowdown in projects. And if we continue to design the next one, or, you know, at least keep it moving forward. I just don't think you're going to have a lot of trust fund money to do projects, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
To get back to the 800-pound gorilla in the room, where are we with sewers in Domrick Hills?
So you mean Lift Station 1 in the first phase?
Well, Station 1, but we had a
It's
4-year
still in the,
phase.
it's in the utility fund.
Okay, very
it's-
good.
It's still, you know, it's still 4, and again, it's phase 1's going to be the most difficult part, because people are going to see how horrible,
Yeah,
you know, of a disruption it's going to be. And we've got the lift station with its own issues. But
right.
once that lift station is in, then that's the trigger that keeps everything moving, is getting that lift station in, abandoning the
Functional.
other lift station, and now we can serve all those homes. Yeah.
Yeah.
right now we can't serve them even if, you know, if you wanted to.
Well, and for those of you that aren't necessarily aware, Lindsay or Vance or Thomas would be, but this is something that we obligated ourselves to do back in 2002 when we annexed Domrick Hills, and we just seem not to have quite gotten around to it yet. And now the cost of the project is roughly quadrupled. So now we're doing it. There will be people unhappy with us. Okay, maybe with me, but you know, I'll take those hits, but it has to be done. So I'm glad to hear that. So still running through the utility funds.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And there's state revolving fund money out there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
library, we do, I didn't mention it, but the library, we do have the site selection. We're looking to get the final report this week and have the presentation. I guess we might end up doing it over Zoom at this point. So they can go through the site analysis of the 3 different sites. And then I guess you guys need to decide what the next step is, because if we're not going to go to bond referendum, if we're not going to go out and ask residents to pay for it, then we probably need to do a few things at the library. You know, if it's going to be 5 years, windows need to be fixed. There's certain things that need to happen. If we are moving forward, then, you know, we'll start like a public outreach to make sure residents get a say as to, you know, how their
What
taxes.
goes there?
Yeah. But we have that site. I mean, this is the next step, the site analysis. And so we'll get that out to you in advance. And then Dale, I guess we'll schedule. I guess it could be at any lunchtime or something.
Yeah.
Didn't really take more than an hour to go through it. And we went, as long as you have it in advance.
Yeah. So that's,
They're gonna, excuse me, Dan.
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Is there going to be, is this analysis going to contain a ballpark cost estimate?
The way that, well, we can do a per square foot estimate. Some of the sites involve a garage. And so it was done more of like cost in terms of elements, you know, this one, it was a point system. So, you know, less points if it's going to cost more and take longer or more, you know what I mean? Higher points if it's easier. And so there's that, but I know they can give a round number. I mean, they've done these things. So,
Okay.
yeah. Are you looking for like,
I want to give y'all an update. I just got over the phone, just so everybody knows. It has nothing to do with what we're doing, but it's kind of big and it affects us as a city. But it's from the Orlando Sentinel. New Florida coronavirus record with 9,000 new cases. State shuts down alcohol at bars. So there's no more alcohol sales at any bars.
What was our number here in Maitland, Sharon? We were still at 21.
oh no, we are not. It just went up. I was just talking to Will. We had a 21% increase in one day. We went from 81 yesterday to 98 today, which doesn't sound like a lot, but percentage wise, it is escalating. So it's out there. Be careful.
So talking about, you know, losing revenue, there's a lot right there probably. I mean, if you go out to dinner, a lot of times you're having glasses of wine or.
Listen, I got to run to Publix on my lunch hour, so pick up a couple. Well, no, and they weren't socially distancing, and that's why. And the alcohol it contributes to it. There's no question. And so I'm sad they had to go that way because that does not help Sanford Brewing and some of the others if they can't sell alcohol. Now, maybe they could sell it as ancillary to their takeout. I don't know.
Vance, was that an Orange County action or a state action?
That's a state action.
Okay.
They were on the news yesterday saying they were going to be out like underage drinking, undercover, you know, from 5 to 1 a.m. looking for these violations and yanking people's.
It didn't come from the governor's office. It came from the Department of Health.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, really? They have the
this was
ability
not
to
a
do
governor's
that?
action.
Well,
Yeah.
DeSantis has to sign off on that.
Yeah.
Because it's in a
But it didn't
agency, but so he probably made them put their name on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Vance. I feel better already.
Sorry. Wow, wow.
Yeah, you and Sharon can have your own damn party. So,
Debbie Downer party.
Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a good thing for the trajectory we're on, as disappointing as it is for those restaurants, but it wouldn't help them if everyone was sick, because then you go to full
no,
shut.
I agree. And a lot of the conversations I've had with other elected officials and Mayor Demings and Dyer that they would love to do anything not to have to go back to stay at home stuff. So, so much of this is actually going to come back down to ultimately people being personally responsible and realizing that we're all on the same team here. No one wants to go back to that. So, sort of like going to the dentist. So, got to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and after getting we all saw the email from Teresa, so we all clearly understand, you know, face mask and so forth in City Hall and other places. So, I'm still trying to beg Maria's indulgence so that I'm only able to walk into the ante room, you know, with permission. So, we've got, you know, work to do. We're not alone in our challenges. What else jumps out at everybody? Michael Wild, are you there by any chance? All right. Anybody have anything that jumps out at you, things you'd like to hear from Mark or Sharon about? So that we can all run out and get our alcohol real
Wait,
quick.
you didn't get to hear the thing you don't know about me. Oh, Dale, you might know. I'm
Yeah.
also a dual citizen.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah, Ireland and the US. So,
Oh, I
I
thought you
too.
could say Boston in the US.
no,
So-
no,
I'm assuming.
I'm not from Boston. I'm from Cambridge. There's a big
Yeah,
difference.
I understand. I do.
Kids out of work.
I think I even know the difference in accents.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Irish, yeah. All right. Of course, I think that may be a different thing between Ocala and Maitland too, but that's different.
Am I the only homegrown?
Homeboy, you're
I'm
it.
the only homeboy here. Homegrown guy.
All right. Well, I mean, Dale, I mean, it's noon. If we have nothing else,
Yeah.
unless you have anything else you want to.
I know that, you know, those of you that haven't been here before, normally we might have had in person, department heads making presentations regarding their budgets, their projects. And I'll be as kind as I can. That's always helpful. But in light of the moment and the, the exposures that people might have, we're not doing that today. So this is as informal one of these as you will ever see. But again, this is part of getting to know each other better, getting to hear directly what we think, what we feel, rather than in the postured setting of a council meeting and a dais, and where we can look each other in the eye. I'm a big fan of that. So being able to understand each other better, know each other better. So these are positive things. I think we hopefully have a little better idea of who it is that we might like to be when we grow up, because we're growing up, and whether we like it or not, nobody's going to stand still. So whether we, ask our folks, our citizens and our taxpayers to spend more to help formulate and manifest the long-term commitments that we all know are necessary. And again, there'll be people that will be unhappy with that idea. But again, that's part of who we signed on to be. So anything, anybody else jump out? Mark, Sharon, anything else you want to talk about or?
Just want to mention that I've only got 2 applications for the Charter Review Committee. And so I wanted to bring it back to you guys on the 13th so they could start working, or at least come up with their schedule and how we're going to do it amidst COVID. So if you have anyone that you were thinking of, you might want to poke them. And also we have an opening on the pension fund if you have anybody who has interest for that one. I think we have apps for P and Z. That'll be on the next agenda as well.
Yeah, we have plenty of P and Z applicants. I
Yeah.
believe we have at least 4, charter review applications. But
Okay, I'll check with Maria. I
Yeah.
had seen 2, but maybe she hadn't sent me the
Yeah.
other 2.
yeah.
Karen, is there an opening on the pension board?
Yes, David O'Connor is termed out as of this month. Their next
Right.
meeting is not till September, so I'd like to get it on the 13th agenda and then you'll have somebody. Additionally, the resident member, which is Jerry, is termed out. It used to be me and then Jerry took over for me. And what we're gonna do after talking to the pension board, it seems silly to have him term out because I have no one else with a financial background to put on there. I mean, I could put Public Works or Mark or Kim, but it's nice to have Jerry because he's involved in the budget and he knows, hey, their assumption rate changed or the returns. It's nice for him to communicate, which is nice. So it would end up being me, and I don't really want it to be me. So we're gonna name him, because it's not appropriate, but we're gonna do an ordinance to name him by position, to say, you don't appoint it, but the finance director serves as a trustee. So if Jerry leaves, the next finance director serves as a trustee, and then he doesn't fall into the appointed category, limiting him to 2 terms. Because when you send him through trustee school and all the things they have to do to be, on the board,
Right.
it seems like you definitely want someone with a financial, he's a CPA. I mean, you want someone like that. That
Yeah.
can understand it.
Brian Stewart is our citizen.
Yes, he's still there and he's fantastic. We really enjoy working with
Yeah,
him. And
yeah.
so, yeah, David O'Connor's, I don't know if he's been on there for 20 years, just hit the new term limits that came in 2012, just impacted him. So, and he had the right background as a financial investment manager, but I know we have at least 1 application for the
Yeah.
pension, board, but I know you guys usually like to see more than 1.
Mhm.
But we'll come with the 1 because we only have 1 slot if nobody else applies.
Sharon, just to throw something out, so you want to put the finance director would automatically.
Like the fire chief and the police chief. Yeah, it would be, so,
Would you
go
like
ahead.
more flexibility to say a staff member designated by the city manager, or are you happy with?
I think finance director is the right person to have on your
Yeah.
pension board.
I would
And-
agree.
And there have been years where we didn't, the only reason I hesitated is when I was downstairs, I was a management services director because I had more than finance, I had IT and some other things. But I still served as the finance director for the city because the code says we have to have one. So you'll always have one, you know what I mean? Even if it's like a CRA position, somebody has to assume that role, even if that's not their title. So I think I'm comfortable with that. It should be the finance director. Only reason that I was put on that board is because I was on vacation when they decided to take the mayor off. And I wasn't at that meeting. And so they appointed me in an absentia, you know what I mean? But at the time we had me and Brian, both of us finance folks. So if I termed out, Brian could do it. But right now it's just.
Well, we had the mayor serving on it at one time.
Right. I started serving when he came off.
Yeah. So that was silly as well. So.
And you
glad
have to
that made.
you have to have the patience of God because you're outvoted on everything.
Yeah, I've only attended one of those meetings ever
Yeah.
and made a note to myself to never attend another one.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, basically the vote is 6-3.
yeah,
And that's a problem. That's just been a little group of insiders.
And that is one thing that you can't change the composition of it without giving up your state money. And we've talked, well, maybe it's worth giving up the state money, but at least to have somebody like Jerry on there to say, wait a minute, time out.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on at the city. You're not, because a lot of times they aren't paying attention to what's going on in the city. Or he'll even say like, That doesn't make sense, you know?
Yeah, and after Jerry speaks, then he loses a 6-3 vote. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes an 8-1 vote would be more likely.
yeah.
How much state money do we get that warrants us having to put up with this?
It's about $300 something thousand a year.
And
Out of our,
if we didn't get that money, what would we be free to do?
make changes.
Make
And hope,
Like,
Yeah.
in other words, a lot of what has gone into those statutes, 175, 185, has been lobbied for, right? And so they benefit the pension fund. Like, you can't do this. You've got to have, they have to have this type of composition where, I don't know if it was Castleberry that stopped taking the money, and then you could make it 4-1 if you want, 4 residents and 1 person on the, one.
representing police and fire.
Yeah, I think they do a 3-2 or something like that.
And then is what's their power? Just regular, or just deciding where money's invested, or what other decisions?
So
can
they
make?
decide the rates, you know what I mean? The estimates that are used, which, as you know, greatly impacts the actual contributions. You know what I mean? So they
Right.
could lower that actuarially, lower that rate, because you guys don't have the ability to do that, because they don't want.
We're just on the hook for the money.
Yes, correct.
I mean, not now, but in the future, I think when the world returns to normal, we ought to decide if that's worth $300,000 to have no say in this situation, because it's not going to hit us, but a future council is going to have to deal with some pretty serious financial issues with that pension
Huge,
deficit.
yeah, huge long-term liability potential.
It is, and every city and state just punts it and doesn't deal with it because it's too big and they don't want to take the hit on their watch. And
You talking about water or sewer or pension?
Pension.
Sorry.
Right,
I
well,
confused it.
and they, and again, I understand why, but now the cancer presumptions, the PTSD disability, all that is also gonna hit your pension funds, because
Yeah,
that's where it ultimately ends up if they can't be a police officer or firefighter.
Yeah.
and,
Let's have that discussion about
PTSD.
with thank you, with my neighbor who's a firefighter, and yeah, that's a big subject amongst them, because some people take advantage of it, but Mike, if you ever want to talk to Mr. Stewart, he would love to talk to you. Brian is very informed.
CFP, right.
Yeah, and he'll chat you up on whatever you'd like to chat up.
well, I've looked a lot at pension funds, and basically they make ridiculous projections about income, interest income, and they're just building up a time bomb that's gonna blow up down the road, as you can see in other cities and states. But I won't belabor this point, so we can move on.
Well, remember 300,000, for example, Sharon, that's about 1/10 of a mil, roughly.
Yeah,
Yeah. So as we begin thinking about that, Mike, see it in that context.
Yeah, this is down the road, hopefully when the world's back to normal, and
Whenever that,
balance that 1/10 of a mil about what it might cost us if we continue on our current trajectory with the status quo. So anyway,
okay.
well, between Sharon and Vance and you guys, I want to run outside and put a for sale sign in front of my house really quick, and and make a quick run by the liquor store. So we'll have one big ass party before we leave. But and then poor Michael Wild, that's not listening right now, gets to be mayor, quick. So, and he'll probably not speak to me for a while. But no, anything else we want to jump out there and talk about? Other than that, I don't have a gavel, but I don't know that I need one. Guys, thank you for being as candid and straightforward. This is ideally what I was looking for in this setting that we find ourselves, was straightforward talk. you know, and real insights into, again, who we're hoping to be, who we believe we can be, and how we get there a little bit. So again, thank you all. Go get yourself some lunch.
Okay,
Or-
thank you.
or go to the microwave and heat it up, whatever it might be. So,
Thank you.
See y'all at Total Wine.
all right, y'all be careful.
All right, later.
Love y'all. Bye bye now.